What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 18 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And today I have to wipe the tears out of my eyes because we're coming to you after a very disappointing loss to the Minnesota Vikings on Monday night, a game that I had penciled in on the calendar as a for sure victory after I rethought that, or I considered that we would be playing Kirk Cousins on Monday night, and he is notoriously bad on Monday night, but not tonight. And we're going to get into it right now. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't Purdy. That's for sure. It was not pretty for Purdy. Honestly, I thought
it was pretty for the Vikings.
Yeah. It was pretty for Kirk Cousins. I mean, here's what I'll say is, like, I don't think Purdy played that bad until like the final two drives where he had the two interceptions. Those to me were, I mean, there's no chance to win the game when you give it away. You know what I mean? It's very hard to win the game when you're losing the turnover battle and then the other one just like sealed the deal. Like, it's not going to happen, right? I know that sounds like common sense. But the defense, they really let us down today. They could not stop the Vikings. Kirk Cousins had all day to throw, and he essentially had a field day with KJ Osborne and especially Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison looked great today, had a couple touchdowns. There was one where Hockenson also played well. There was one moment in the game, I'm glad that you mentioned Hockenson, that I think is kind of bullshit, that I think the NFL needs to like do some investigating, like, or look at this, closer. But did you catch the moment where Joe Buck even caught Kevin O'Connell telling Hockenson to like stay down and pretend like he's injured?
Well, I don't know if it's confirmed that he was pretending that he was injured. I understand he came back into the game relatively quickly, but I think what O'Connell was thinking in that moment is strategic, which is he noticed a player who was probably hobbling or wincing, maybe holding his calf because he was perhaps cramping, and he kept, you could see it. He was yelling at him until like, get down, because he wanted a timeout that he didn't have to spend, right, to go over a play call. Like, what should we do here, right? Get a little extra 20 to 30 seconds, maybe longer, because it's an injury timeout. It's smart. I agree that it should be something that could potentially be penalized, especially for defenses, because it is bullshit when, a team's driving on you late in the game and maybe your team's out of timeouts and then your players start going down with cramps. It's like, okay, come on, But the way I looked at this one was it was one play and they never showed us the view of Hockenson. At least I didn't get to see it, of what Hockenson was doing. I'm assuming he was wincing and hobbling over to the sideline. Maybe not like a dramatic hobble or anything, but enough where O'Connell probably said, let's go down and let's get some extra time here to call a play, which makes sense.
I don't know. It looked like to me that O'Connell wanted a little extra time for something, and
Well, he
then
was they just got in the red zone
yeah.
on
So
a notoriously great defense. Like it makes sense to me. I'm not saying it's fair or anything. I'm just saying if it's allowed, you should do it. You should take
mhm,
advantage of what is allowed.
mhm.
Just like the
and
tush push, right?
and I mean, all I'm saying is that if you're not going to burn a timeout in that situation, I don't think pretending to be injured, and maybe Hawkinson was actually injured, and what you just laid out is was the reality of the situation. But I know this stuff like goes on way too often, like across football at all levels. So and I'm not complaining that that's the reason why we lost the game. That was like at the beginning of the game. Like that
Yeah.
had minimal to like no impact on the rest of the game. But it's just one of those things where it's like, really, like, all right, um, if I mean, and it's going to be like impossible to prove, but uh, they should look into that more. But uh, going back, I want to talk about Jake Moody. Jake Moody missed a field goal early on in the game, and I guess, on the broadcast they were talking about that he was complaining or noticed that the grass, the turf at US Bank Stadium had a little bit more matte feel to it.
Mm.
And, to me, it's like, yeah, he didn't miss as many kicks as the other kicker, which is, it's kind of shocking. It's like you miss a field goal, but you weren't the worst kicker on the field that day. He made it when it mattered. I do think it is time to be concerned about him though, because if he keeps missing kicks, I think it definitely played a factor in this game. Because if you have those points early on, the game could play out differently. You don't have to play from as far behind as they were. You could have been playing for you know the go ahead touchdown a lot earlier to alleviate the pressure rather than the last desperation drive.
How many field
Or
goals did he miss?
he missed
Just
one.
one early on.
Yeah, he
So
missed
I
one,
mean,
and then I think the other kicker missed 2 field goals, if I'm not mistaken.
well, I know the other kicker missed an extra point, which
Mm,
that theoretically that would be huge. So basically, let's just say Moody doesn't miss his field goal early on. You guys would have been down 2 points at the end of that game. And I texted in our group chat, when the Vikings were up 5, after the 2-minute warning, the Niners had no more timeouts, and they kicked their field goal attempt, which they missed. And they were trying to go up 8 and force, a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. I texted the group chat saying I would have just gone for it. It was like 4th and 5. The negative with not getting it is I don't think the clock runs if you get a turnover. I think it stops
no, it
because you
stops.
have to. Yeah, because the other team has to get time to go out there. But if you get that 4th down conversion, the game's over. You don't have to kick a field goal. It's over. You're going to clock it because they don't have any more timeouts. And either way, because you were up 5, your opponent had to go down and score a touchdown. The difference was if you don't get this field goal, which they didn't, a touchdown would have won the game for the Niners. Whereas if you did get the field goal, they still need a 2-point conversion, and then it's a tie, probably going to overtime. So I understood their decision, but I think a team like the Niners, with how prolific their offense is, I'm probably going for that 4th down and trying to put them out.
It was like,
But as far as
are you talking about the 4th and 6?
4th and 6, at the end of the game, the last Vikings offensive drive, but after the 2-minute warning where they kicked the field goal and they missed, I would have gone for it because Kirk Cousins was dealing. The Niners defense was giving up all the underneath all game. Addison or
Oh,
Osborne or whoever number 4 is would have got open.
mhm.
Somebody or Hawkinson. They were all getting open. It was actually insane to watch.
Yeah,
And then as
the
far as
Niners
Moody,
secondary was a problem.
yeah, yeah. And as far as Moody, if he makes that field goal early on in the game, you guys get that ball back. Theoretically, if the Vikings do the same thing and kick that field goal and miss, you guys get that ball back down 2. So Purdy would have done enough, I think, by the yardage, I think, at the end to get a game-winning field goal. Or at the very least, Purdy isn't being so he isn't forcing passes
Pressured.
and then eventually getting picked off. It's more of you can run the ball a little bit maybe, and you can maybe you don't run the ball too much, but you can do
the playbook expands when you're not limited.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of limitations, I just want to talk about how one thing I notice about this the Niners offense, Purdy doesn't he tends to throw a lot over the middle, and I think defensive lines have sort of picked up on that, and the Niners are one of the only teams that I see struggle with this problem consistently of defensive linemen batting balls down. Like, it's been like that since like we had Garoppolo. It was a problem with Trey Lance. It was a problem, it's a problem with Purdy. And I think that the defenses are picking up on the tendencies that Purdy doesn't throw outside the numbers very, very often. When I think about Purdy, when he throws outside the numbers, he rolls out of the pocket and is able to, makes it an easier throw. Right? He's not like Justin Herbert to where he, maybe Herbert's a bad example because he's losing a lot of football games right now too and making a lot of mistakes. But he's not, one of the elite quarterbacks who is stretching the field. And that's not to say that before the turnovers, Purdy was playing bad. No, I don't think Purdy was the reason why the game was that close. He was actually playing really well, and the defense could just not stop a leaky faucet. And it's one thing to look at in terms of like the future of like, in the grand scheme of things, because people talked about this is, tonight was Kirk Cousins' audition, his live interview for the Niners quarterback position, possibly next year. And, it sounds ridiculous because we have Purdy now, but if Purdy has a couple more games where, he throws a turnover late and Shanahan can't trust him, I don't know if Shanahan is going to make the mistake that he made with Garoppolo and invest in Purdy long term if he doesn't trust him. And I think Shanahan trusts a guy like Kirk Cousins. And not to say that Kirk Cousins is like the best quarterback in the NFL, but like, he's I think he played better than Purdy did tonight. And he had better blocking. The Niners pass rush, I mean, they got to get more pressure. It was ridiculous. Like, Kirk Cousins, I thought for sure he was going to get sacked on one play. I thought he was sacked, and then he just escapes and then throws it to was it you're muted, I think. But what was the guy's name? No, the other guy, number 4.
Yeah, I don't know his name.
He was one of the backups. But and then I think the Niners got a penalty too, like for defensive holding on Isaiah Oliver. And it was just a bad game across the board. Steve Wilks so far has looked like the worst defensive coordinator the Niners have had in the past couple of years. And if things don't work out with the Jets and Robert Saleh, I would highly consider thinking about bringing him back. And by the way, I see you guys in the comments. I'll get to your comments pretty soon. But I don't know if this defense just needs a guy on the field who hypes them up and has them play with more intensity. But the past 2 weeks, like, I've noticed the lack of intensity there. There used to be, they used to pan to D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh on the sideline getting fired up after a big play. And, you just don't get that now. And then the defensive line, Eric Armstead has been non-existent for a couple years now. I'm not sure, I understand why they paid him at the time, but I don't agree with keeping him over DeForest Buckner. And then, you traded Buckner for the pick that you used on Kinlaw, and Kinlaw hasn't been producing. Kinlaw has improved over the past couple years, but he's not giving you what you thought you were getting. And then, um, and maybe it's not necessarily a knock on Kinlaw. He didn't choose to be drafted that high, and I know I always return to that these players don't choose the way that they're evaluated by the teams. Uh, Nick Bosa hasn't had a great season so far, and I mean, let me just talk about Nick Bosa for a minute. I feel like this is going to be a down season overall from Nick Bosa. I don't know if he's going to be able to flip that switch and turn it on. I really expect that, or what I really think happened is the whole offseason negotiating his contract. He really, he didn't have the training camp. I feel like that was a big factor. And he probably didn't push it as hard in his workouts because if you get injured, you're not getting the bag. So he had to secure the bag before he really, put the pedal to the metal. I don't know if there's been a sack this season. I've seen him hit the quarterback a couple times, and I know that he does draw attention away from, they have to double team and everything. But the week before, we saw him get neutralized by rookie DeJuan Jones, right? And like Brian Baldinger said, they didn't put any training wheels. It was just straight up like one-on-one, and Jones was getting the best of Bosa. So I think that he didn't prepare the way he needed to this offseason. And he was the one player that everyone, including myself, said, oh, he's the one player that you don't have to worry about. He's going to come in shape, but it's not translating on the field. And maybe it will later down the line in the season. But I really expect that next year he's going to be better. And this year is, the consequence of not having a full training camp.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't close the door on Bosa this season or anything. Like,
I'm
at
not
any
closing the
point,
door.
yeah, I just think at any point he can get hot. I mean, look at Khalil Mack. Like, if you look at the top 5 sack leaders this season, it's like T.J. Watt and Danielle Hunter from the Vikings, and then it's Khalil Mack and like 2 other guys who have like 6 or 7 or 8 sacks. Mack got 6 of them in one game, which you never expect that, but Nick Bosa is easily the type of guy that can get 3 sacks in a game 2 weeks in a row, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's back to form, he's fine,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you one thing, he's not winning Defensive Player of the Year this season because it's going to be either Myles Garrett or TJ Watt. But I think as the season keeps progressing, Bosa will show up more and more. I think the real question is what's going on with the 49ers D-line as a whole, because they're just not getting the pressure that they usually get. I mean, they're doing really well against the run, I'd say. Like, Javon Hargrave pops on the screen to me.
Mm-hmm. No, he's playing well.
Yeah. But
the unit as a whole is not, they're not clicking together. And, one thing you'll see is I will see Bosa get frustrated and just take any gap that he can get rather than try to win. He is taking what they're giving him, and what they're giving him is traps. Like Kirk Cousins, and we saw last week with PJ Walker. I saw Nick Bosa swim to the inside, or maybe just stunt to the inside and fill in the the inside gap, and the outside is wide open. And then Kirk Cousins had nobody in front of him; they were all to the left, right? And then all he has to do is slide to the right.
Right.
So it's just one of those things that we've seen in the past Bosa take over, and his struggles, honestly, date back to late in the season last year, where I think that he sort of slowed down on his sack trajectory. Like, he wasn't getting as many sacks as he was at the beginning of the year, or towards the end of the year, that he was at the beginning of the year. So, I don't know if he's just being figured out, but elite players in this league, you can figure them out, but they're just so good that you still can't beat them. So, I don't know if Nick Bosa's best days are behind him. I don't think so. I think he is a football player that you will need by the end of the season, and he's going to rise up to the occasion, and he is going to have an impact on big games.
Yeah.
He just is in a little bit of a funk.
Yeah, I'd say he's just not in mid-season form, which most players aren't, but guys that missed the offseason are definitely not going to be in mid-season form come, week 5, 6, 7. It's going to take a little bit longer.
The Niners are in so need of a bye week. It's not even funny. They need to get right. They've got a pretty tough matchup coming up this upcoming week, which we'll talk about pretty soon. But it was not only just a bad day for the Niners. It was like, what made it worse was that the Eagles made like a pretty significant trade today, and the Eagles are sort of establishing themselves as probably the top dogs in the NFC. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't feel good about the 49ers traveling back to Philadelphia. I know they're going to have to in week 13, but having to do that for a playoff game, like, because Debo talked all that shit in the offseason, and, we talked about it, the theme of the show, or, we briefly touched on the whole laugh now, cry later thing. I don't know, man. It's, I don't think the Eagles are as strong as they were last season, but they have yet to hit their midseason stride. And maybe they can overcome the Super Bowl hangover by just, getting through each week and then just starting to play good football. And then the Niners right now, they started off so hot, and now they're coming back down to earth a little bit. And I think I'm kind of coming back down to earth a little bit too, because I was like, oh man, maybe this team could be 17-0. I said that after the Cowboys game. And now I'm just like, all right, are we going to be the 1 seed? Like, I'm confident this team will still make the playoffs, but I was like, I know that if they get there, Brock Purdy, he can win the Super Bowl. Now we're starting to see the bigger sample size, defenses are sort of figuring out, tendencies, and, Purdy's still able to operate the offense efficiently, but it hasn't been good he wasn't good tonight in the clutch when we needed him.
Yeah, I mean, what I see with the Eagles, for one thing, their front office just doesn't know how to make a bad move, it feels like. Somehow they just stumble their way into like these perfect trades that any other team would beg for, specifically teams like the Raiders. I mean, getting Kevin Byard, if that's how you say his name, or Byard. He's one of the top 4 safeties in the league, and they got him for fucking nickels and dimes. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess they gave up like a somewhat young safety in Terrell Edmonds, but who cares?
Honestly, Byard should just ditch the A in his name and just be Bird. Kevin Bird.
Spaw! Yeah.
Because he's on the fucking Eagles.
And that's the other thing, is he's from Philly. Like, he grew up apparently being like a big Brian Dawkins fan. It's like, that's the same thing for DeAndre Swift, who they traded for. And they have a receiver whose name I cannot remember because it's like a crazy name. I'm not even going to try it, but they're from Philly. Like, that, it doesn't really do much, but it helps. Like, that makes
you're talking about the tight end, Okonkwo?
No, he's on the Titans. Right? The receiver.
Yeah, my bad.
Zacchaeus or
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus, yeah, he's from Philly too. So, I mean, they got like homegrown guys and stuff. I mean, they got it all figured out. And what I see with their team now, they're getting Byard, fuck. But they're slowly progressing as the season goes on, and I can't help but feel like Jalen Hurts is almost holding back. Like he's not running the ball. He's really not. Not like last year. He's doing the tush push, which is the A game thing for them. But he's not really scrambling like he did last year. Um, he only does it when like he absolutely needs to or when he sees something really like obvious. Otherwise, it seems like he's more focusing on passing, and sometimes it's not always working out. But I think that's them trying to keep him healthy because I don't think they enjoyed him getting hurt and having to be out for 2 weeks or 3 weeks to end the season last year, which my fantasy team didn't like that either. I think they want him to be healthy all season and specifically ready for the playoffs when it's time for it all to matter. And that's when he can go and do his thing and win them games. But I mean, AJ Brown he just tied a record with Calvin Johnson for 5 straight weeks of 125 yards receiving. I know this isn't an Eagles show. It's just they do look like the top dog in the NFC right now, but I still think on paper the Niners have the better roster, but the quarterback might make the difference for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And now getting Byard, that's huge.
And I just want to further the point. Yeah, it's not an Eagles show, and the only reason why we're talking about the Eagles right now is because it almost seems like the rematch between them in the NFC Championship is a match made in heaven. Like it almost seems like destiny that they're going to end up facing each other again. I really believe it's going to happen, and it's one of those things where I feel like the only two serious teams in the NFC are the Niners and the Eagles. So you can take it however you want. As you know, if you're an Eagles fan, take it as a compliment because I think very highly of both teams. And you know, for Niner fans, you should also take it as a compliment because both these teams could win a Super Bowl this season. I think both of them are very capable of doing so.
Yeah, I think any other team in the NFC is a wild card. The main two being the Lions and the Cowboys. They are the types of teams that can go in there and play spoiler, like hardcore. Like they are two teams that could go to the Super Bowl, but I highly doubt. Specifically, I doubt the Cowboys. Whereas I could see it for the Lions if they get hot right at the end of the season. I think they're the type of team that's built where they can beat any team. They just have to play. They have to execute perfectly. And then the last point about this that you made, home field advantage is going to be absolutely massive for the Eagles and the Niners because it's one or the other. Like I was looking at my little magnet board up there that has all the divisions right here. It has each, NFL division, and I was kind of ranking them, based off of their current standings. And it's like the AFC, you have like the Chiefs and the Bills are like the two obvious teams, even though right now the Dolphins are actually sitting ahead of the Bills because the Bills just lost to the Patriots. And really, there were a lot of losses this weekend that were like, what the fuck? Bills losing to the Patriots, the Niners losing to the Vikings. This isn't on the same tier, but the Raiders losing to the Bears is like, dude, what? The Lions getting killed by the Ravens, who are also sitting atop of their division. But, I see the Chiefs, Dolphins, Bills, Ravens as the teams that are like serious in the AFC, whereas like really I only see 3 in the NFC, which are the Eagles, Niners, and Lions.
I don't think the Lions are on the same tier as the Niners and the Eagles.
That's why I called them the wild card. But I think they're right there with the Cowboys. Their roster constructions are capable of doing it, in my opinion, which would be a similar feel for me of the Jaguars in the AFC.
In order for the Cowboys, in my opinion, to go to the Super Bowl or win it all, they would have to avoid the 49ers. I don't think they match up well with the Niners. And they proved 2 weeks ago. And, that's history. But I'm telling you, a loss like that isn't going to drastically change in
I'll give you the Lions and the Cowboys roads right now. It is for the Cowboys, it's to face the Eagles in the divisional round. And divisional rival, you can beat them. And for the Lions to face the Niners. And I'm not saying the Lions, oh, they could just beat the Niners, but theoretically, let's just say the Lions beat the Niners, right? And then Dallas Cowboys versus Lions championship, it could go either way. But yet, or of course, if the Cowboys face the Eagles in the championship, but that means somebody has to beat the Niners, and I don't know. Anyways,
but yeah, Kyle Shanahan, get the team ready, make some adjustments. This is one of the areas where I've said that Shanahan has to improve as a head coach, is making adjustments. So hopefully we will see them not turn the ball over, not miss field goals, and bring better pass rushing and better coverage. Really, those are the keys. I think the linebackers played fine, except for the coverage. Right? I don't recall the Vikings really being able to establish the run in this game, and they're not that kind of team. But Kirk Cousins and the wide receivers and tight end were able to just dismantle the Niner defense. So Steve Wilks, that also falls on you. You have to make those adjustments as well. I'm going to get to some comments after.
I was just going to say, I've noticed since week 1, the Niners' pass defense has been giving up chunk plays relatively often. And, right now, the Niners' offense can overcome that. And really, probably any given week, they can overcome that. But you go out there and face the Eagles, who just, forced the Dolphins to score less than 20 points, you're going to have trouble if you can allow A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and company, lace you guys up all night. It's going to be a problem.
Two things. So first is an interesting stat that I just saw. It's been like 300 or a couple hundred days since the Dolphins have beat a team over 500.
Yeah, I did notice. Yeah, I did notice that the first 5 weeks that they played was like Patriots, Panthers, and a bunch of shitty teams that are not looking good right now. So it is interesting.
The second thing, going back to the Niners, you brought up before that this defense isn't quite like 2019. And one thing I noticed that 2019 did a lot better was this team right now is a bend don't break defense where teams are going to be able to drive down the field, and really at the goal line is like when you make your stop, and you just try to limit the damage. Whereas the 2019 Niners, they were physical, they played man-to-man coverage more often than not. I felt like it was the wide 9. They didn't send a lot of pressure. They just let their pass rush do its work. They had DeForest Buckner, and they were able to really make life hell for non-mobile quarterbacks. And so they were not bend don't break. We're going to break you all game long. And I felt like they were more physical too. And so I think it's interesting to compare and contrast both those teams. But we'll see if Wilks can make the adjustment, like I said. But there were a couple plays in this game where I'm like, man, you sent a blitz at the worst time. There was the play. It might have been Addison's touchdown where I think he sent 6. And then the Vikings said, hey, we're going to send 6 on the scoreboard. And then there was another play that got called back where I believe that they sent a really big blitz on a screen play, and it was able to go for a ton of yards, get them in the red zone. But then penalty backed them up.
Was that the double pass trick play?
I think it might have been the trick play.
It was a good play, but they got
no. It wasn't the trick play. Although there might have been a blitz on that play too, but it was. I swear it was just a screen to Madison, but you might be right. I might be thinking of the trick play. Let's get to some comments. Chicano, evening. Thank you for tuning back in. Same thing with you, Fonzie. Let's see this comment here. Chicano says, so tonight I want to pick Josh's brain. First question, how do you feel about the losses? And do you feel that they were similar defeats? How are we feeling about Moody? So, Chicano, if you can, please elaborate. Do you mean that the losses that both the Raiders and the Niners had this week, or are you talking about the loss to the Browns? Like if the Browns...
I think it's the back-to-back Niner losses.
So, I feel like they were similar defeats. I feel like the team did not come out with the intensity that they needed, and they were both on the road. Both involved, poor play from the defense, poor play from the kicker. I'm feeling concerned about Moody. I don't know. The fact that he was able to drill the field goal at the end made me feel a little bit better about him, that he didn't continue to get in his own head the way that Brett Maher did for the Cowboys at the end of last season. What are you cooking up over there, Mike? Oh, yeah, Mike's correct. So it is the Browns loss. They just don't look as confident. I don't know. I really feel like they were not up to the task last week. They essentially got bullied last weekend, and I thought it was the wake-up call that they needed, but right now we're seeing the Niners shrink when I think that they should, a Super Bowl champion team needs to respond to adversity, and the Niners still have an opportunity to do that next week against, the Bengals, who have a good offense, good receivers. The Bengals offense is going to give you more problems than the Vikings.
If you're going to keep allowing the chunk yardage plays, hell yeah.
Yeah. The Niners offense needs to bring it next week. And Debo's not going to play. And then where was Ayuk? Honestly, Ayuk kind of disappeared a little bit in this game. I expected Brandon Ayuk coming into this season to really have that breakout. And he has been doing good when there's been other weapons on the field to take away attention, and where he's been able to get those one-on-ones against the corners. And it looked like him and Purdy had such good chemistry. But right now, it's not looking like either they're not on the same page, Purdy isn't looking his way, or Kyle's just calling more plays to Kittle. And, they're just McCaffrey or bust. They are slowly becoming the Carolina Panthers. I was listening to Grant Cohn. He mentioned that on his show with the coach last Friday, the idea of adding Christian McCaffrey to this offense was to add him to an already established unit and not to make him the offense. It was supposed to, make everyone around him better. But right now it just, like I said, it's McCaffrey or nothing.
Yeah, I think especially last season, it was definitely like that because you don't have a full off season to like.
What's up, Joel?
What's up? You don't have like a full off season to draw up plays for McCaffrey, whereas after last season you got the full off season. Shanahan did to really think about how to utilize McCaffrey, and kind of taking it back for a second to your last topic before these comments, the difference between 2019 and this team, this offense is better than that offense, and this defense is not nearly as prolific and shut down as 2019's defense. But what I remember was the Niners owning the time of possession and shutting down the opposing offense. And it was just the ultimate winning formula. And part of owning the time of possession was running the shit out of the ball with Raheem Mostert and Elijah Mitchell and probably somebody else, probably Jeff
No,
Wilson.
Mitchell wasn't on the team in 2019. Mitchell was a
Okay.
rookie in 2021.
So it's probably maybe
it was
Breda.
No, well, he was also on the team. But Tevin Coleman.
Okay, yeah. But I think I don't think using McCaffrey as much as you can isn't a bad thing, because he's so efficient. You do need to mix it up and get everybody involved, which, I mean, until the Browns game, I feel like that was happening wonderfully. And that very well may come back and start working out against the Bengals. But point being, I think running the ball as much as possible for this team is not a bad thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then to further the comparison of this team versus 2019, I really felt like that team wasn't as dominant on offense. Like the defense was no joke. They were the best defense in the NFL. The Niners offense would find ways, the whole team would find ways to win games. They would find ways to win. Whereas this season so far through 7 weeks just feels like, all right, we're either going to dog you or we're going to disappoint. And, they've hit a slump ever since the Browns game. They started that fight and then they couldn't back it up against the Browns defense. And now, they're banged up. Trent Williams didn't play. Deebo Samuel didn't play. McCaffrey's got the oblique, but he played through it. And, honestly, I called it. Like, if he's on the field, Shanahan's going to use him. Like, yeah. I don't know what my brother was thinking. He was like, you know what? I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to start Mitchell. And I'm like, even if McCaffrey wasn't playing, that's not a good idea, because I really feel like Jordan Mason is in line to be the workhorse after that, or maybe they would split. But yeah, I would have loved to see more out of Kittle and Ayuk, honestly. And I know Pia's dad really wanted them to throw it more to Jennings, but Jennings is that player that they only seem to rely on him on third down. And I wish that he would be more consistently a part of the offense, because really, you wear down defenses and you absolutely break their spirit when you have other guys stepping up and they can't just guard one or two guys, right? Whereas today the Vikings were just like, all right, we're going to focus on Ayuk and we're going to try to limit McCaffrey. And, Kittle didn't step up. Brock played well until he didn't. He played really well and then he played really bad. So it's just one of those things that they have to really clean it up. And hopefully this next week they can survive going into the bye and they can get rested and, go back to playing 49er football. Because right now they're not playing 49er football. Chicano says, how do you guys feel about the refereeing? It's been really bad the past 2 weeks. And really, like, throughout the season, it's been pretty bad. I would say, like, all across the board, not just Niner games. And it's been bad both ways. Like, I'm not saying that like the referees are just favoring the Niner opponents. Like, they've just been like awful in like every game. Like some game altering, plays that referees have been deciding. I mean, today there was a couple, I felt like ticky-tack pass interference calls, but ultimately, do I want to blame the refs as the reason why we lost? No. It shouldn't have been that close. The defense really didn't play well. Like they couldn't guard the Vikings, and then when they did, it was pass interference. So, and like I said, close calls where maybe they could call it one way or another. It is what it is. I hope the officiating improves, but what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't overly noticed bad officiating. It's probably just because I'm focusing more on Raider games, and maybe it's because I'm just so I don't care quite as much right now because of the way that the Raiders are playing and my desire for like a top 3 draft pick. I'll take the bad penalties when we can get them at this point. But I haven't focused on it. It's really not quite a question for me to answer, but I've noticed a few in the past 2 Niner games. So,
Mm-hmm. Both games, I felt the Niners were playing against the refs as well. I kind of felt that definitely in the Browns game, but the Browns game I felt like I would say was bad both ways. More bad. It was more bad both ways. Like it was bad against the Browns, bad against the Niners, and then towards the end, it was like, I kind of felt like they were screwing the Niners a little bit.
that's how it always feels when you start getting hit with a lot of penalties at the end of the game. I think what you're saying, and I agree with. If I'm remembering correctly, the Niners and Browns each had like 11 penalties in like the late fourth quarter. Like anytime you have a game where you have north of 10 penalties on any team, it's annoying. Even 5 penalties can be annoying. When I was watching the Eagles and the Dolphins game last night, they pointed out that the Eagles had 0 penalties in like the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins already had 10. And it's like, I can only imagine how annoying that is for Dolphins fans, although I never noticed if they were horrible calls or anything, but it's like, damn, the Eagles must just be well coached or something.
Mm-hmm. I think my issue is when they don't call something all game and then they call it like in a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
It's like you should have been making that call the entire game.
Yeah.
But going back to this, I felt like the Niners definitely were it was at the expense of the Niners more this week, in terms of the officiating. Some of them were actually penalties. And I don't know if I just didn't pay attention to more penalties that maybe should have gone against the Vikings. Oh, there was one penalty. I feel like that should have been intentional grounding on Kirk Cousins. Madison went to the right for a screen, and Kirk Cousins was right about to get sacked, threw the ball to the left, right into the ground.
Mm.
Like, and you can make the case Madison is in the area, but he was on the opposite side of the field, Yeah. I felt like that was grounding. And even Troy Aikman said, if there is you typically don't get grounding on screens, but if there were ever an intentional grounding to be called on, on a screen, this is the one.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt that even before Aikman said it. So I was like, where's the receiver? There's no guy lined up on the left. And maybe Madison went the wrong way, but still, you get penalized for that. You don't get the benefit of the doubt if the guy ran the wrong route. They always call it. And we always we make fun of Derek Carr. We make fun of Derek Carr saying, you ran the wrong route. Like, you don't get a mulligan for running the wrong route. So, yeah. Jay Rivera said Ward was getting worked all night. Yeah, Ward and Lenore, honestly, they were both getting worked. And Isaiah Oliver also had a penalty. It was not a good day for the Niner defense. Jay, thank you, by the way, for tuning in. Fonzie says, I feel this relatively young team is missing the energy from the sidelines from the D coach. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. I wonder if the adjustment from Wilks is I don't know if he just doesn't match the same energy that the defense normally is used to on the sideline, or I don't know if he's just calling the wrong calls, but it's obviously not translating the past 2 weeks. And really, really the whole season, it's not translating the way it has in the past.
The difference between Wilkes being in the booth and oh geez, why am I forgetting his name? The Jets coach.
Saleh.
Yeah, between Saleh and damn it, the Texans coach. Damn it.
DeMeco
Ryans. Between those two, like anytime the defense would get a stop, you'd see them like flexing and like yelling and like giving them all high fives and like fist bumping and stuff. It's like that fires players up for a fact.
Hey, Mike, I got to tell you, this is going to be an inside joke between you and I. But do you remember the other night when we were doing we were casting the coaches, and
Yeah.
that one picture you sent me, and I was like, man, I should wait for a bad week. I should wait for a bad week and then post, man, I miss DeMeco Ryans.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
well, you have 2 bad weeks in a row, so
yeah.
You want to post post away.
Oh, hell no. Definitely not in 2023.
Yeah, that can't be explained.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry to the audience. You guys are going to have to just imagine. Do you feel all the calls were legit? There were some ticky-tack calls, like I said. Jay Rivera says, fire Josh. Why fire me? No, I'm just playing. Fire Josh, Riley, and Caleb 2024. I know it's a Raider comment. I got that from the fire Josh, but yeah, I don't know about Caleb Williams. And then right now he's starting to come back down to earth too. Really, it's funny the timing of that, because it really felt like, he was like, oh, whatever team I'm drafted to, I want part ownership.
Yeah, he's been really
arrogant.
He seems very arrogant and also extremely full of himself. I saw him in a press conference, like a post-practice press conference last week, and somebody asked him a question like, I wish I knew what the question was, but his first thing that he said to the question was like, well, it was about somebody, I think maybe the field got stormed because he lost 2 weeks ago, and somebody was like talking shit to his face or something, and the reporter asked him a question about it. He was like, well, everybody wants to be in my shoes right now, so it doesn't shock me that a student from that school, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. I'm like, everybody wants to be in your shoes right now?
Well,
really?
No. I mean, I don't have an issue with what he said, really. Like, in that particular case, it's because, I don't know, did you see the clip? The fucking dude just ran on the field, got in Caleb Williams' face, started recording, hit, like in selfie mode, and it was like, we beat that ass, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think that's why field storming can be a little, and that's definitely why it doesn't happen in the NFL. But I just think that kind of comes with the game. I mean, a good example for me is like right now, I just saw, before we started the podcast, I saw a video of a fan, a Raider fan, at the Las Vegas Aces, the WNBA team that just won another championship that Mark Davis owns. And this Raider fan is out there with a sign that says, fire Josh McDaniels or whatever it says. And Mark Davis walks by. He has no security or nothing. He just walks right by him. And the dude's just like yelling at him, like, you need to fire Josh, smarten up, blah, blah, blah. And like Mark Davis is like actually trying to talk to him and stuff. But it's like, that comes with it. Anytime the negative stuff happens, you expect the recoil, and I don't like that response from Caleb Williams. Like, he's trying to take the high road and not talk shit, but he's talking shit. He's like, everybody wants to be in my shoes. I'm so fucking cool and good, and I'm going to be the best ever. Like, everything that he's ever said suggests that he thinks he's going to be the best ever, no questions asked, to the point where it makes me want him to fail. So, but not if he's on the Raiders. But the Raiders aren't getting the first pick. He'll probably be a Bear or
If the
if the
Raiders aren't
Vikings.
getting the first pick, who will?
Well, I think regardless, as long as Josh McDaniels isn't fired midseason, which I don't know if he will be, they're not going to earn the first overall pick. They're going to keep trying to win. A team like the Bears, because they have two cracks at it between their pick and
The Panthers?
the Panthers, who are they still
Going to
haven't
be
won
the
a
number
game.
one overall.
Yeah, so it should be the Bears.
Or they're projected to be number one overall.
The Cardinals could still sneak up there, but I mean, they have Kyler, but they could trade to Kyler. I mean, the only other teams could be like the Giants, honestly, but they just re-signed Daniel Jones. The Patriots. The Patriots. That's another team that could be the number one pick. Or the Broncos.
They just won.
If they tank. Yeah, the Broncos could
just
tank.
won.
You know? But that's all Caleb Williams. And yeah, but the past 2 weeks have not been very kind to Caleb Williams, and he's certainly falling from the heavens right now, it feels like. And we'll see how the pre-draft process goes once we get to like January.
Man, the football gods have been relentless to anybody who's been arrogant the past 2 weeks. Like Niner fans, just like an endless barrage about the whole Cowboys game, and the football gods were not kind with the 49ers, and they're not kind with Caleb Williams. So,
well, I think there's definitely a conversation to be had. I got a text from somebody who I won't name, essentially saying, they think that, for lack of a better term, that Kittle, fuck Dallas shirt was a jinx. You get a little too cocky, and it's going to bite you in the ass. And you'd much rather it bite you in the ass 2 weeks in a row in the regular season than in the playoffs. But you never know. I mean,
they have absolutely had an emotional letdown since then. It has been an emotional letdown for the 49ers ever since then.
And I think the Niners are one of those teams, and the Eagles are like this. I think the Lions are like this. Most teams are probably like this, but the Niners, probably because they've been so good the past couple of years, they are very much like this, where their players like to talk. Mm-hmm. They do not shy away from talking, especially Debo on Twitter with the Lions safety. And then, he goes on
Debo's not even talking about him. Debo's not even talking about him. He's like, I'm just going to let him do his talking. He doesn't even really know me like that.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, anytime a Niner player is, like, getting into another team, like, 8 times out of 10, it's Debo. That's what, like, in the offseason, if he goes on a podcast, he might talk about a team. What was it last year with right after the Eagles game? He was like, he went on that podcast, or it was this offseason. He went on that Eagles podcast and immediately stopped.
No. He talked smack about the Eagles after they lost, and then he went on that Eagles podcast, or the guy who likes the Eagles, and he asked about, he's like, "Do you have a message to Eagles fans?" And Debo's like, "No, I don't want to talk about it."
Yeah, and what is that? What does that look like? You want to talk shit all season when you guys are winning, and then once you start losing and you get asked on a podcast, what do you want to say to Eagles fans? I'm leaving. That's pretty weak, right? So you guys can get all high and mighty when you guys are winning. I'm mostly talking about the players, but when you start losing, you better back it up. You better start getting back in gear and winning. And I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will, but it feels like a little bit of a – like the Browns game was a reality check, but losing 2 weeks in a row is a major reality check. Like, hey, let's get back into business mode and not like show off mode,
Mm-hmm.
Like let's get serious.
Like I'm fine with the Niners like being all cocky and everything, but you still have to work hard to back it up. Like the season didn't end after week 5 or week 4. There's still a lot more football left to play. This team still has not won a Super Bowl. They are on the verge of being, all these players being remembered as that team that shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? They should be focused. Like they're their legacy is on the line. You know, and you could say, "Oh, well, it's not February yet." Yeah, but in order to make it to Super Bowl Sunday, it's very imperative that you get that 1 seed so that way you have the best chance to go all the way and to win. You don't want to go on the road in the playoffs. It's it's tough, especially if you're going to go travel to Philadelphia. So, Niners, hopefully this serves as the wake-up call. But so far, 2023 has been inconsistent because we had, we thought we had these concerns in the preseason about them, and then they just flipped the switch in week 1, and then it was like, oh, they're fine. They hit the ground running, but so far their tendency has been inconsistent.
Yeah, and I think my last point on this is like, I think I completely lost my words on it. Damn it. I think the better way to go about like being confident and dominating your opponent is more along the lines of 2019, which is through production rather than through talking shit after you go up 40 points on a team. And hey,
Yeah, I
mean,
think that's fair. They weren't doing that in 2019. They were like more focused and like really celebrated amongst themselves rather than like starting fights and shit. And like, that was another thing you mentioned. After this loss, right when it was clear that they were going to lose the game, like after Purdy threw the interception, they started fighting. And what happened last year when they lost the NFC Championship game, they started fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that it makes the Niners look like sore losers, and it does. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you. So they need to knock that crap off.
Yeah, and granted, I mean, the way that the camera showed it was, interception, ball game's over. You might get that player doing the worm or whatever the hell he was doing for the Vikings, and then the camera cuts. I think that was earlier in the game, but still. And then the camera cuts to Niners offensive linemen fighting with Niners or Vikings defensive backs. Very easily and likely was that, Vikings defensive backs were Fortnite, emojiing on the Niners, but, they were grittying or whatever the hell they were doing. And maybe the Niners didn't like it, but you guys lost. So,
yeah, to me, if you lose, and this has been true, like, from when I played, if you lose, shut the hell up. You got to be focused. There's nothing to be happy about. And if you wanted to fight in the 60-minute football game. That's when you should be fighting, in between the whistles. Don't do it after the whistles. That's when you get suspended. That's when you put the team at risk. And that's when you look the worst. That's when you have everybody praying that you lose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I guess what I was trying to get at earlier is like, what do you think is more scary? A team that is winning consistently and they're talking like mad shit, and like really cocky and all that, or a team that is dominating, winning consistently, and they act like that's just fucking business. Like it doesn't fucking faze them. That's all they do,
Mm-hmm.
What's more scary, honestly? Like it is a little scary to be like, fuck, I don't want to lose to them and then like have them talk shit about me afterwards. But at the same time, like when you see a team, like it's like if you're a high school team and you're not a special high school football program and you go up against like De La Salle and they just fucking steamroll you guys and don't think shit about it. Like it's just any given Friday for them. That's scary. That's like we have no chance.
Or it's like Rocky going against Apollo Creed versus Rocky going against Ivan Drago. You know what I mean? Ivan Drago, quiet. I must break you. You know what I mean? None of like the smack talk in between. He's like just all business, like going to kill you. And whereas Apollo Creed wanted to make a spectacle out of it, I want you. And then honestly, I just think the whole thing about it just screams insecurity. And I don't know what the Niners have to be insecure about. Just leave it on the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Leave it on the field. Purdy got taped now. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was worried about this entire time, that like, maybe Brock Purdy, who started 8 games last year, maybe it was just a great 8-game stretch. I think Purdy has proven that it's more than just that, but the sample size is still small, and he can still very well come back down to earth and prove to everyone why he was taken as the Mr. Irrelevant pick. So, which is why I had issue with getting rid of a guy like, thou who shall not be named. But hey, on the bright side, the Niners have 3 first-round picks to trade away again, and hopefully move up to, with the Bears, because I don't know if the Bears are going to take a quarterback. We can trade up, and hopefully we get a guy who has played more than 17 games. Well, actually, we're going to get Kirk Cousins, so we're not going to need a guy. Fonzie says Wilkes D isn't very good. It's very bend don't break. So let's see. Looking at other comments here.
I know this is going to like sound disgusting, but his defense feels like a Raiders defense, which is like bend don't break, but like also break,
It feels like a New Orleans Saints defense, where the offense would really carry them throughout the season with Drew Brees, and the defense was the problem, and they couldn't stop anything, but they had good players like Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say, I guess it feels like the Raiders defense, but the Niners have a better D line, and better linebackers.
Since the season started, we've had 0 success getting to the quarterback. These guys need energy from the D coach. Chris Kocurek needs to step up during the game, coach him up. I've been giving nothing but praise to Chris Kocurek, but these guys are not getting after the quarterback. And I know he can't do it all, but I don't know the adjustment that needs to be made. But they are sending, I think the concerning part is that they're sending pressure, and they still can't get there. Like they're sending multiple, like you'll have 6 people going after the quarterback at a time, and then you have the defensive linemen, like, all right, there's 5 offensive linemen, and then there's probably a tight end and or a running back blocking. Typically, maybe you get the running back on a check down. So 6v6. You're telling me Nick Bosa can't win his one-on-one? You're telling me Javon Hargrave can't win his one-on-one? You're telling me that Eric Armstead can't win his one-on-one? It's ridiculous. And hopefully, who's number 5? Randy Gregory. Hopefully he can improve as he learns the Niners defense more. But to me, if you're playing D-line, you either got it or you don't. It's less about learning. It's more about producing. So, if it's a pass, you rush the quarterback. If it's a run, you fill your gap. Right? There's not really much else. Like there's not like except for the stunts, right? But there's only so many stunts that you can run on the defensive line. Chicano says, Josh, don't be losing hope, my brother. I'm not losing hope, but I'm coming back down a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not the whole, all right, this team could possibly be the greatest team of all time. I mean, maybe they still could be. I was like, yeah, they might be better than the 70s Dolphins. I'm over here like, maybe this team has a shot at the Super Bowl. I'm at there right now, not quite down. I'm still confident about the playoffs. Still confident about going deep in the playoffs. That's where I'm, at right now. Fonzie says, Wilkes is making the secondary the primary group on defense. We're not built like that. The last 5 seasons we've been able to get to the quarterback with 4, but now we need blitzes. No, I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that he is playing way too soft of coverage with this secondary when they've been known to be the more physical, like stop you at the line of scrimmage. You know, in terms of the blitzes, I was looking forward to Steve Wilks actually being able to dial up blitzes because I felt like it would give the pass rushers a little bit more production. But really, the defense, I mean, the D line hasn't been getting it done. And Wilks tonight called blitzes on plays that really gutted the Niners. So it was just bad all around. And I like this comment by Chicano. It says, first job we should give to AI referees. Yeah, knowing the NFL, they would find a way to ruin AI too. So,
I'm sure baseball will do it first, and then at some point maybe football can do it. But I feel like that's kind of hard for football. It feels impossible actually for football.
Mm-hmm.
But certain things should come down to like slow-mo replay, yada yada. But they'll get there.
Mm-hmm. How can he match the energy when he's up in the booth all game? I don't know. Probably upgrade his headset.
Yeah. Start yelling at Fred Warner. Oh yeah, Fred Warner gets like a tackle for loss. Fuck yeah, Fred! Fuck yeah, in his fucking ear.
Yeah. But instead, like what we get from Wilks, like the whole game, like yeah. I swear, like the whole game they show him, he's got like his play sheet. Like I swear, a fly could land on his forehead and he won't flinch. He's locked in. But it's just that the energy, it's just not there. Joel says thoughts on Purdy these two games. Purdy these past two games, it's actually a great question. So Purdy has sort of done the opposite in both weeks, where Purdy against the Browns was terrible the entire game, but at least gave the team a shot to win in the end, right? Played better as the game, as it went to crunch time. Purdy this week, Purdy in tonight's game, Purdy played very well. And then, the team around Purdy just, didn't match. But at the end, when they needed Purdy to play well, he played like crap. He did not show up and he choked. So it's really, the past 2 weeks has been inconsistent for Purdy. He needs to play a solid 60 minutes of football to give this team the best chance to win. And, really, if you think about it, this team has so many weapons, and the most success you've gotten out of Purdy has been by having him give it to the playmakers so he doesn't have to win the game for you. And unfortunately, that's kind of what we had to do with Garoppolo back a couple years ago. I hope that we aren't heading towards another Garoppolo, and I hope, I'm confident Purdy is better than Jimmy. Like,
yeah,
flat out, I know Purdy is better than Jimmy. But what I don't know is if Shanahan will lose trust in Purdy, and we're just going to get a change in game plan, and the Shanahan, the doghouse for his quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Because it seems like he just all of a sudden will not trust you.
Yeah, he seemed upset about the last interception and the game, but I also saw a lot of really good throws from Purdy tonight. I don't think he's at risk of like losing the rim. I mean, obviously not this season, but I think what could potentially start to, worry Shanahan is a horrible playoff game from Purdy,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even these past two games, Browns game was in the rain, and this game, I just feel like the Vikings were just playing as well as they could,
And they didn't even have their best player.
They didn't have Trent. Well, yeah, the Vikings. But the Niners are missing. Right, but also the Niners didn't have Trent Williams and Debo. So I still feel like he's going to be fine. But
Yeah. Smarten up. Yeah. I mean, they do. Like, Niners need to absolutely use their brains a little bit more, when it comes to starting all these fights. Yeah. In the booth is not cutting it. Most defensive coordinators, I feel like, are in the booth. You get the guys like Dan Quinn who are on the field, Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans. I don't know. If I was a defensive coordinator, I've always just been used to coordinators being in the booth so they can see the whole field and then relay to the head coach. But man, maybe it's this. So Shanahan isn't your typical head coach. He is mainly on, focusing on the offense. And you see him throughout the game always looking at his play sheet when he should be looking at the field. It always seems like he's thinking about what he's going to call on the next drive. He's always looking at that play sheet. This is one of my big gripes with Shanahan. I don't know if he's clearly a successful head coach, right? He can win football games. He has yet to prove that he can win Super Bowls. I think he'll get there, and just a couple weeks ago, I was pretty adamant that it was going to happen this year. He absolutely needs to improve on his game time decisions and clock management and, situational awareness. I feel like he's too invested in his play calling, and it's allowing him to suffer in other areas that are important as a head coach. And maybe Wilks, typically a defensive coordinator, I would assume their headset goes to the head coach and the head coach goes to the player, but maybe it's just all one relay and they all hear it. So, it is what it is. Yeah, Fonzie, the way that this Niner team can get remembered, I wouldn't say they would go as far as like the 4 in a row Bills team when they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. They would get remembered like the 2012 Niners. And, just a couple of years ago, or it might have been last year, they had a reunion for that team. And, Harbaugh came. I don't think Kaepernick was there. But, a lot of the players like Patrick Willis, Frank Gore, I think was there, Alex Smith. Maybe Alex Smith wasn't there. But I heard that all they got was like a little golf clap when if they were Super Bowl champions, you would have gotten an ovation. Jed York did say once upon a time, we don't hang NFC championship banners. We hang Super Bowl banners. So to me, that's the bottom line. And Fonzie says that's why he blames Wilks. So we'll see if Wilks can improve next week. Let's talk about it. 49ers versus the Bengals. Really, the Niners just have to go back to, I don't know if they have to go back to square one, but hopefully Trent Williams is able to go in this game. The defense, I predict the defense might struggle a bit. If they struggled against the Vikings, I don't know if 1 week is going to be enough for them to turn it around. And good if they flip the switch. A little concerning, is it going to be inconsistent like this all season long? You know what I mean? Where some weeks they'll show up, some weeks they won't. Hopefully Wilks can design a defense that will limit Joe Burrow and, limit Jamar Chase. Because I don't know about you, Mike, but I think 7-Eleven is kind of crappy. Do you get the reference? Wah, wah, wah. No, because Jamar Chase made made a joke at like his press conference like 2 weeks ago. He's like, you know, I think they lost, and they asked him like about whether he thinks he should be getting the ball more or something like that, and he was like, 7-Eleven, I'm always open.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And then last week, I think he had a big game, and he posted like a picture of 7-Eleven, you know, so.
Right.
But I mean, really, Jamar Chase is going to be the best wide receiver that this Niners team has played all season long. I don't even know if it's close. You know, thinking about the other wide receivers that they played, they didn't even face Jefferson tonight, and they lost. But really, the offense has to show up. I don't know if you can rely on the defense. McCaffrey, hopefully he didn't worsen his injury against the Vikings tonight. He looked fine. McCaffrey looked like McCaffrey. You know, he's tough, played through it. Getting Williams back will be huge. Fred Warner, I mean, I know he went down in the Vikings game, but he came back onto the field. I think he's going to be fine. There was a moment there where I was like, well, there goes the season.
Well, yeah, he was like, you could hear him on the telecast or whatnot on the microphone. Like, it sounded like he was almost yelling in pain. And then it turns out you watch the replay and it's like he just got what's probably maybe a bone bruise or a really bad bruise because he got kneed right in the thigh. But
It's probably a Charlie horse.
Yeah, maybe. Actually, my question, because McCaffrey looked fine. He showed no signs of re-injury at any point in this Vikings game. My question is, what's going on with Trent Williams, and will he play against the Bengals? You know, I want to say Trey Hendrickson. Is that his last name? Right, Hendrickson.
Who?
From the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson.
I guess I'll find out on Sunday when he makes a play.
Well, I think he's one of the leading pass rushers in sacks this season.
Is he the white dude?
Yeah, I think they have two white dudes. They have Sam Hubbard, right?
Yeah. One of them made a big play in their playoff game against the Ravens a couple years ago, or
I think that was Hubbard.
I think that was Hubbard.
Yeah, but Hendrickson's going off this year, I think, and I'm assuming you guys will have Trent Williams, but I don't know what his injury is.
It's his foot. I think it's his foot or his ankle.
Yeah, I'm just
let me confirm that.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how he is, because bear in mind, I mean, same for Debo. They already essentially rolled him out for this Bengals game because after the Bengals game is the bye week, right?
Yes, it's the bye week, and this team absolutely needs a bye week. They need to get out of here with a win.
But at that rate, if you have a bye week coming up, it's like, well, unless Trent Williams is like better than 80% healthy, maybe 90% healthy, why even risk it when you can just wait till the bye week and then start playing him after that and he's healthy? Like if you trot him out there against the Bengals and he re-aggravates his injury, you might not get him back till 2 weeks after the bye week.
If I had to guess, Trent Williams is not going to play. It's his ankle. I say you just rest him going, into the bye week. But you might drop this game against the Bengals. As far as the way I see the game playing out, if the Niners win, it will be because their offense stepped up this week. They, Purdy has a bounce back week. McCaffrey carries the offense again, same as usual. And then the defense plays better than they did last week. Or, it could just be a shootout. If the Bengals were to win this game, I'm not saying they will, but if it were to happen, it's because the offense is unable to win a shootout with the Bengals. Like that's really how I see it. I think it might be a high scoring game.
Yeah, and potentially Joe Burrow picking apart those defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
Like worse than Kirk Cousins did this week.
For all I know, it could be a low scoring game where the Niners defense just gets pressure this week on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow holds the ball a little bit too long, and I see it being a close game. I am picking the 49ers because it's a home game.
Yeah, I hope it's a close game. I hope it's a really good game because I'm going to be in attendance. I'm picking the Bengals because the Niners are coming off a short week and the Bengals are coming off a bye week. The Niners are going to be without Debo. Don't change your answer now. And because I finally want to maybe tie up with you.
Mm-hmm.
We just went 0-4 this week on our picks. But
yeah, I didn't even show the recap of that. Terrible.
Yeah.
I'll show it now.
Well, you could do it now, yeah. But yeah, I just think the Bengals are going to come in healthy. That doesn't mean I'm picking them to win, but it could go either way. Honestly, I won't be shocked at all if the Niners dismantle them. Coming off 2 straight losses, pissed off, defense steps it up and just shuts them down. 2 or 3 weeks ago, the roof was falling in on the Bengals. So, but again, they're coming off a bye week and, Niners off a short week, coming, flying home from Minnesota. I think Trent Williams is one of the key players on this Niners team. Being without him would be huge. So,
I think your argument, it is very logical. I'm going to stick with my 49ers pick because I find it hard to imagine that the Niners would let 3 games in a row go.
Yeah, that definitely is one thing that was holding me back. I'm like, oh man, I can't see 3 in a row, but at the same time, like a lot of things are mounting up for me to pick the Bengals.
Yeah, like the Bengals are clicking, or have started clicking the past couple weeks, and the Niners have started unraveling the past couple weeks. So I definitely see that. I'm just, maybe I'm a homer, and I'm picking the Niners.
No, I don't blame you at all. That's the thing with this Niners team. Like when we did our first ever episode and we were going through the schedule, it was like it's hard not to pick the Niners in any given game other than maybe the Eagles. But even that game, it's like I see the Niners winning because this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, this one's I feel like a toss up, but I don't know if I can pick. I could pick against the Niners. Like, I've seen it happen now 2 games in a row, but 3 games in a row, I don't know. I feel like we would have some serious problems, and the season would start to not slip away, but the 1 seed would be slipping away.
It'd be feeling like it's slipping away until you face the Eagles. You'd have to go on a big win streak after the bye week. Eagles catch a loss or 2 leading up to that week 13 matchup where you guys have the chance to, overtake them.
Mm-hmm. And then so far of our predictions, I know we're it says 5 out of 8, but this one is yet to be determined. So really, in the ones that we made, we've gotten 5 correct, and 2 out of 7. Yep, yeah. 2 wrong. So, yeah. Niners? No. Niners?
Bengals. I'm very excited to be at that game. I think it's going to be a good game. Whether or not whichever team wins or loses, I just hope it's close. I hope the 2-minute warning is pivotal. I hope whichever team has the ball to end the game is trailing by 7 points or less. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and I just want to see the Niners, spanking teams and scoring 30 again. That's what I want to see, personally. But
I hope it's.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind
7.
I wouldn't mind a close
shootout.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a close game. Well, I would. Man. I would mind a shootout. I would love for the defense to step it up, right. But I would like to see Purdy win a close game. It would be nice.
I'd like to see a shootout where both quarterbacks are just going off.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. All right. So let's see here. Going to get to some comments, and then we will transfer the stream over to the Raiders. Unfortunately, Fonzie says this defense, our defense now was built off of the line. Absolutely. We spent like how many draft picks in a row on defensive linemen? Like it was actually insane. And like the season that they picked Kinlaw, one of my friends asked me, who do you think the Niners are going to draft? And I'm like, Kinlaw. And then he's like, and he's like, oh, you think they're going D line? I was like, yeah, they've gone D line every year. And Shanahan has even said, like, he's like, oh yeah, if I had the opportunity to pick a D lineman every time, I'm picking the D lineman. Because I think he said when he used to play Madden as a kid, he would always pick Michael Strahan.
Well, I know one little tidbit that came out of this Vikings game. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck were talking about Shanahan and John Lynch and how great of a job they've done, building up this roster from where it was when they first joined the Niners. And it's, something to definitely behold and, congratulate them for, essentially. But I guess Shanahan or Lynch, one of the two, said, our initial goal was to build this team up from the trenches, and obviously specifically the D line. And he wasn't kidding. Like, that's like they started with Solomon Thomas, and then it was, and then it was Eric Armstead, right?
Well, no,
or was it? No, it was
Armstead. Armstead was drafted by.
Oh, it was
Chip
before
Kelly.
Wow.
No. He was drafted by Tom Sula. Possibly even Harbaugh. No. I think he was drafted by Tom Sula.
That makes sense. Was the Colts current, whatever his name is,
Buckner?
DeForest Buckner
he was drafted by Chip Kelly.
Oh, wow. Damn. Yeah. Okay. Well, still.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
By the way, I got to get, this might be comment of the week. Fonzie says, I pick our team every week, even if Jesus Christ were to show up against us. I love the enthusiasm. And I don't take it back. Don't take it back. Okay. I didn't mean the Jesus Christ comment. It's okay, man. There a couple weeks ago, I was saying the same thing. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Niners are the team to beat. Right now, it's Niners are the team that you can beat. So, thanks a lot, Kyle.
I wish I could be that that confident in my team. Because right now I cannot be.
People are getting too complacent. Yeah, that's the thing. I felt after they beat the Cowboys, it felt like they were too complacent. So, it's shown that they've gotten knocked off their high horse and they have to get back up. Adversity's good. But you know what's even better? The 1 seed. So overcome that adversity now. Yeah, home field advantage. Overcome that adversity now. And I don't know, deal with the CTE later. All right. Fonzie asks a great question. Why would you be at that game, Michael?
Well, I want to see Joe Burrow live, and I live in the Bay Area, and it's not quite so easy going to a Raider game, and financially costly. I don't have to pay for hotel and this and that, and the Niners are a great team. And I think, maybe not quite so much this season, but in the past 2 years, the Bengals have been a great team. I want to see two great teams duke it out, right? I expect a good game. So this was a game that I had circled, once the schedule was released.
Also, Mike's got a pretty good connection, friend of the show, whose family member works for the 49ers and gets season tickets. So, shout out to Paulina if you're watching the show. Let's see here. Bro, I root for y'all whenever you face the competition.
I'm assuming he's talking about the Raiders. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think he is talking about the Raiders. Because to him the Raiders are a California team.
Mm.
Hey, Paulina is in the chat. Shout out Paulina. Paulina, thank you for watching the show. Bro, once we get in the playoffs, we're 5-2. Are we top? No, we're not the top seed anymore. The Eagles are.
Yeah, the Eagles are the lone 6-1 team, I think.
Yeah, I think they're the lone 6-1 team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is finally time, Mike. We're going over to talk about the Raiders. Mike, do you want to tell everyone your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions? Talk about your tears, your blood, and your sweat that you put into watching that game on Sunday.
I had no tears, but I was pretty shocked. I will admit that this game started at 10 a.m. Western time, and I got some much needed rest, and I woke up at 10:30 Western time. So I woke up to a 7-0 deficit to the Bears, and I was pretty shocked to find that. And to be honest, once the game became a 14-0 deficit, and they went to halftime and they came back and they showed no signs of life on offense, I stopped caring. 3 weeks, before the Packers game, I was already throwing in the towel. Like, let's just go fucking get the first pick. I don't care. This team sucks. The head coach needs to go, right? So let's actually get into the Bears game, though. Raiders lose to the Bears 12-30. The Chicago Bears. 12-30.
I always notice you pronounce it Chicago. I always say Chicago. Like SH.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people say Chicago. There was another word that just came up this weekend that people say differently, but I'm forgetting what that word was. But I just say it because, or at least maybe I've just taught myself to say it because I read Chicago, But the only positive, and unfortunately I actually didn't really get to notice this, but I'll read off some stats. The only positive from this game, and this is a good positive to have, was Tyree Wilson, the first-round pick. I think Max Crosby also got a sack, but Tyree Wilson, I want to say, got his first career sack in this game. He had an 82.9 PFF grade, which was the best on the team this weekend. He had 2 pressures, 1 QB hit, 1 sack, apparently a forced fumble, 2 stops, and a 13% win rate. This is all from Tristan Kuhn on Twitter. That's all the positives I think I have for this game and probably this episode of the podcast. We're about to get really negative. This was the worst that I can remember a Raiders offense since Jamarcus Russell. And I should this week, but also this season. It's really bad. And that's right. Josh McDaniels, the head coach, is calling plays. He's also the offensive coordinator, or at least the play caller. That's not good. It's not good. So at some point during this week of practice, Josh McDaniels decided to start Brian Hoyer instead of Aiden O'Connell, which last week on the podcast I was kind of back and forth because I felt like Hoyer was okay against the Patriots. Granted, he didn't score a touchdown when he came on the field against the Patriots. And, oh, by the way, he actually did throw a touchdown this week against the Bears. To the Bears. It was a pick 6. Thank you very much. Brian Hoyer was 17 for 32 for 129 yards, a 4.0 average per completion, and 2 interceptions, one being a pick six. So I don't even think Brian Hoyer threw a touchdown in the preseason. And I think the only touchdown that he threw, again, was a pick six, I think, to the Rams. So Brian Hoyer has thrown 2 touchdowns this season for the Raiders, and they're both going to the opposing team.
You know who Brian Hoyer reminds me of?
Please say Jimmy Garoppolo.
He reminds me of like Sam Darnold a little bit. Like the offense doesn't really go anywhere.
He's Sam Darnold in like 15 years.
Yeah.
If
like
Sam Darnold's somehow still in the league.
Bald Sam Darnold. But Darnold has a better arm.
Yeah. Aiden O'Connell eventually came into this game late in the fourth quarter, way after I would have put him in the game. I probably would have put him in the game after halftime. Honestly, I mean, you're down 14-0 against the team that should be the worst in the league. And bear in mind, they were playing their third string running back and their second string rookie quarterback who's never played a down in the NFL ever. And you're getting, like, they weren't tearing them up, but like, I mean, the run game kind of was, but
an undrafted rookie at that too.
Yeah, and I just don't understand
he
how you
looked
can
pretty
lose
good.
to that. He did.
He looked pretty good, but the Raiders kind of made him look good.
They definitely.
But he looked
did.
confident. He came in there. He was like, the next Brock Purdy.
I have some stats from Twitter just to see if I can find it really quick.
Okay.
About Bagent. I'm assuming is his name. Bagent.
Tyson Bagent or Bagent.
Come on, where's it at?
While you pull those up, can I share my thoughts?
Let me say it really quick, just so I don't forget it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tyson Bagent's 2.5 yard average depth of target was the 5th lowest in a game, minimum of 15 attempts, over the last decade. 2nd lowest in a win. And then there's something about Ryan Tannehill. But, like, they were able to beat you on 2.5 yards per attempt. Like, that's insane. They were just chunk playing the shit out of us, and our defense was bending. And then once it came to, 2nd and goal on the 3-yard line, they finally broke, and they gave up the rushing touchdown to their running back. They just chunked the shit out of us, and they beat us. And they could do it because our defense sucks, and our offense is even worse with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, Jacoby Myers, right? And it's all the quarterback play. It's all the play calling. And I would say the offensive line is not helping. Mm-hmm. It's insane. So go ahead.
I saw the game too, and my immediate thoughts are you guys are not establishing the run. And it's hard to establish the run when the box is loaded because you can't pass the ball. Brian Hoyer was throwing the ball to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers almost exclusively. And
I don't know. Yeah, you can kind of see that. This was his average depth of target, per play.
Mm-hmm. You're not stretching any defenses like that. No, I see it. I see it.
All the green was on the left side of the field for him. All the completions essentially were on the left side of the field. And the deeper he'd throw it, the more inaccurate, incomplete, and interceptions he would throw.
Mm-hmm.
He only completed 2 passes on the right side. The rest were all on the left.
Yeah. So, and those were a lot designed or a quick slant. But, I really noticed he kept throwing to receivers who were double and triple covered. And then next thing you know, it's 4th down and you got to punt the ball. And then the defense, could not stop Deontay Foreman and Tyson Bagent. Yeah. Let's just call him beauty pageant. How about that?
Is there any way that you can pull up the tweet that I last sent you? on Twitter on the screen.
Michael, don't be silly. You know there's a way. When there's a will, there's a way.
This is a quote tweet from Christian Kuhn, but it's the video and original tweet is from Marcus Johnson at the Mark with a C, John NFL. Just look at this play. This is Michael Mayer. So focus on Michael Mayer on the right side of the line, right? Obviously Hoyer's at quarterback. Looks like the second quarter. The first read is Michael Mayer.
Okay. I'm going to break this down too from what I see. Okay. Or do you want me to just play it through and then after?
No, you can break it down. I think it's going to be play action, but I don't know because they have a fullback.
It is play action. Okay.
So the linebackers are kind of sitting because they think, oh, this might be a run.
So far, so good. Okay. Mayer is going to be wide open right here.
Yes,
That's where
and
this ball
Hoyer
needs to
is
go.
already looking.
Okay. Throw the ball. Throw it.
If you don't throw it there,
if you don't throw it there, throw it to Jakobi Meyers. He's about to break open right up here.
Right, but what I'm going to say is like press play and then pause. You don't throw it here.
Also, Devontae. No,
you got a safety.
Trouble with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, you pick. Take your pick,
Yeah.
Brian. It's right here or it's right here.
It looks like he's being indecisive right here because he sees both of them. But right as he's deciding to throw to Jakobi Meyers, he has Mayer wide open for what might be a touchdown. Probably not. And like, it's not like he made the worst decision in the world. It's still a plus play for a first down, but it's like, dude, you could have had Michael Mayer for a 40-yard pass completion.
Yeah, this actually isn't a bad play because
it's not the worst.
If he does throw it over the top, the safety can get there because he has to throw that immediately. Like I'm saying, right here, throw it, hit him right here in stride. It might be a hospital ball though.
Yeah, but like,
or lead him to
the pocket's so clean, you can like pump it to Meyers, have the safety bite on that a little bit, and then you have a touchdown to Mayer.
Do they give the other angle?
No, I don't think
on
so.
This replay?
Maybe.
Okay. But that still picks up a first down. It's not a bad play. I know you wanted the touchdown, but
I think my main point here is just, the past 2 weeks, we've been utilizing Michael Mayer pretty well, although it seems to consistently be the opening drive, the opening game script, where Michael Mayer is like written into the game script. Yeah. And he's looking at him. And then right here, he looks away. Right when he has the chance to throw it, he's already looked away. Like he's...
Okay, so he probably sees this linebacker on him. That's Tremaine Edmonds?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it was a bad decision.
It's not the worst. It's just I want more players involved in the offense. And Davante Adams had maybe not press conference, but he was questioned by reporters, post game or during practice or after practice. I don't know when it was, but they were asking him like, what needs to happen for this offense to get more successful? He's like, we just need to mix it up. You know what mixes it up? Throwing it to your tight ends, not just Jakobi Meyers and Davante Adams.
This is a tough throw.
It's a tough throw, but we're also complaining about not throwing deep and making defenses honest, is what Davante Adams said. We need to get the defenses to be honest. We need to open up the field. Plays like this where you write in a tight end to go deep, that keeps the defense honest when you hit on it, because then they're going to go, oh shit, we need to not allow that again. And then you might be able to run Jacobs for 5 yards and not -1 yard or 2 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But the quarterback play period has just been annoying because they're not attempting to throw the ball deep.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I want to see more tight ends involved because that's always been McDaniel's thing with the Patriots offense. It was like, Rob Gronkowski
Gronk,
and Aaron Hernandez.
Aaron Hernandez,
Like,
gone forever.
that's what I expected when they drafted Michael Mayer. You know, oh Jesus. But they're not using him like I think they shouldn't. Granted, he's a rookie, but it's like we gotta attempt deep passes. And at this point in the season, there's nothing to lose. You just lost to the Bears. Like, do whatever you want to do. Do double passes, do reverse plays. I don't give a shit. But do something to make the defense not sell out for the run every play.
Mm-hmm. Just to clarify, I'm not making fun of Aaron Hernandez's death or anything. There is this meme. It's got Ken Murphy, the YouTuber, the baseball YouTuber, where he's hitting dingers and he's like hits this ball and he goes, "Gone forever, Aaron Hernandez," and that to me is just like, it's so funny. I always think back to that meme, and that was before Aaron Hernandez was no longer with us. So just want to clarify that, so nobody thinks I'm making a very distasteful joke. So yeah, but I mean, all right, going back to the Raiders, Brian Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell. Even when Aiden O'Connell got in there, I noticed that they were forcing the ball into players who were double and triple covered, aka Adams and Jacoby Myers. Aiden O'Connell, however, actually threw the ball to other players. The first person he targeted was Renfrow, and Renfrow actually got a couple catches because of O'Connell.
I think Renfrow converted a 4th down late in the game.
Yeah.
And like O'Connell's stats to me are like a little, like I don't take him too seriously because it was garbage time. Like the game was over.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I mean, compared to Brian Hoyer, right? So 17 for 32, 129 yards, 4.0 average, 2 interceptions, and a pick 6, right? In those 2 interceptions was a pick 6. Aiden O'Connell came in late 4th quarter, threw a touchdown, also had an interception, 10 for 13, 75 yards, a 5.8 average, right? So, I mean, he actually threw a touchdown, which again is garbage time. It's different, but and yeah, you notice it on the screen when you're watching. It's like, oh, he's actually throwing it to like multiple players. So I don't know. It's annoying. I mean, Josh Jacobs, 11 carries for 35 yards. That's horrible. You're not going to get anything. This is the Bears. This is the Chicago Bears defense. 11 for 35. Wow. What is wrong with this offense? What is wrong with the offensive line? And I agree with your point. It is 100% the quarterbacks not throwing deep, not keeping the defense honest, which is what Davante Adams is saying. You're limiting your offense. You are complete. Like, that's why I was concerned when they signed Garoppolo. They were limiting their offense. And I think this is probably the right moment for me to talk about Derek Carr. I think he's been essentially, for lack of a better term, struggling with the Saints. And obviously the Raiders are struggling this season. Now, I still agree with my opinion that he was not worth his contract that he was signed up for, which was $40.2 million per year. And after this past offseason, it was going to be like fully guaranteed, and I just was not about that. But then again, now we have Jimmy G for what I think is now 2 years, this year and next year, pretty much guaranteed, for a little more than half the price. But he might be half the quarterback. He might be that fucking bad, especially for this offense. Because, I mean, the Raiders, they only won like 6 games, and the last 2, which they didn't win either of them, but Derek Carr didn't play in. But at least he was able to throw it deep quite a bit and keep the defense honest. Derek Carr was probably the reason why Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing last season. Not the sole reason, but the difference between this year and last year was Derek Carr for Josh Jacobs. Mm-hmm. So
And also a contract year.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
motivation.
yeah.
Well, it's still a contract year.
It's still a contract year for Jacobs, 100%.
But he
Yeah.
wasn't paid like he is this year.
Yeah, and I mean, how upset do you think Jacobs is right now? Averaging, I mean, in this game, 11 for 35. That's not even 2 yards per carry. That's like that might not even be 1.5. I could be wrong, but well, it probably is. But
11 for how many?
what? 11 for 35, like 10 for 40. Oh, that's 4. That's 4 yards per carry. Wait, so oh no, my math's
like
off.
3 point,
Three
3
yeah.
point something, or
It's probably 3
around
yards
3.
per carry. Yeah, but wow, it's a little late for me. I was thinking 20 for 35, Jesus, but it's still horrible, right? Like I know teams will want him in the offseason. And I'll get back to Jacobs. And I already talked about Micah Mayer. I'm kind of looking at my notes here. Jacoby Myers, he's been shockingly consistent for this team, and I really like him for this team moving forward, like past this season. 7 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Like nothing to complain about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have really nothing to say about the defenders. I already talked about Tyree Wilson and very quickly about Max Crosby. I have to get into Devontae Adams, and this is going to be a long conversation. And I'm not saying to switch the convo yet because I'm going to state something and then you can switch it. Actually, no. Do you have any last thoughts about the Bears and Raiders game? Because we're probably going to end it pretty soon.
So I did have a thought about what you were saying about Jimmy Garoppolo, and yes, he has been that bad. I'm not defending Jimmy Garoppolo, but here's one thing I will say: when he's been on the field, the Raiders' record when he has started.
Aiden O'Connell.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
G. Sorry, my bad. I was looking at the comments. My bad.
We'll get to those in a little bit. Or before the Devontae Adams thing.
When Jimmy G starts,
yep, they're 3-2.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So still technically a winning record.
That's what Jimmy does.
Yeah, that's what Jimmy does. He stinks it up, but for whatever reason, he just wins.
Yeah, so he was there for obviously the Broncos. Bills was a loss. The Packers. He was in for the Steeler game, right? That'd be his other loss. And then he was in for the Patriots game, but he didn't finish. So 3-2.
3-2.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would get a John Gruden. I'll tell you what, man.
I'd rather start Aiden O'Connell and just lose out.
John Gruden would hate Jimmy Garoppolo, dude. I don't think he would. I don't think they would coexist. Like have you seen the clips of like Chris Sims, repeating the play calls? I could just imagine Jimmy Garoppolo like, can't we just go by numbers? Instead of like having to repeat the whole play.
But do you have any other thoughts about the Bears and Raiders game?
I thought that the Raider defense played worse than they did in the past couple weeks, which is a little alarming. But I don't know if they were just playing better than we expected, or if they're coming back down to earth. I really don't know what to make of it. Raiders are a confusing team, man. They have hit, they've hit adversity now, and this is the typical point in a Raiders season where like, things will be going good. They won week 1, and then they'll, out of nowhere, just something will happen, and then it'll snowball. The Raiders will just allow things to snowball. And this isn't a Josh McDaniels thing. This has been a thing for like, 2 decades now. Also, Fonzie, thank you. for checking us out. Sorry that we're going a little overtime today, but you can finish watching the live stream tomorrow if you choose to. I thought, and maybe Jimmy Garoppolo has been helping with this, the whole mindset, but he hasn't been on the field. He's got glass bones and paper skin.
I did notice that at the end of the game, they had a shot of Jimmy Garoppolo sitting on the bench alone with Davante Adams. And again, we're going to get into Davante Adams, but it's been very widely publicized that if Davante Adams isn't like genuinely pissed off, he should be. Like, I can't tell if the media is overdoing it or if he's really pissed off and he's trying to get the message out. I really can't tell. Mm-hmm. And I think he's a really good team player, and he wouldn't like throw a big fit or anything, but it's clear that he wants to win no matter what, and he wants to win on this team. But there comes a point where that frustration is going to really spill over,
Mm-hmm. What do you say we get to some comments and we talk about Davante?
Yeah.
Paulina says, for the record, I grew up a Raider fan because of my dad, and now he works for the Niners. LOL. Hey, whoever writes the check, right? I would work for the Raiders. You know what I mean?
I would love to work at
no
Levi's.
Income tax.
Yeah.
So
Las Vegas.
Yeah. I would do it. Doesn't mean I have to like the team. So, Mark Davis, the first job that I know I can do for you is I can give you a better haircut than the one you have right now. And also, I might even be a better head coach than Josh McDaniels. I have no Super Bowl rings, but I'll tell you one thing. We're not losing to Tyson Bagent, beauty pageant, whatever you want to call it. Fonzie, on the whole Chicago thing, said heavy CH. So
Chicago.
Chicago. And then he asked if I'm Latin, because only his aunts and uncles pronounce it that way. I don't know if he's asking me or you. I'm assuming me.
I'm assuming you, because you said Chicago. Maybe he is saying me because he said heavy ch. I'm not Latin at all. Mm-hmm. I am white.
Everyone Caucasian. I know pronounces it like Chicago, except for Mike. And then Mike goes like really hard on the Chicago.
Yeah, I mean I've gotten a couple names wrong recently. I think I just said Bagent wrong earlier. Like when I first said his name, I said Biard. It's Byard.
Oh, Byard.
Somebody else's name. I think last week I said Hyrie Alexander. It's Jair.
And yeah.
and then the legendary one was Illuminor.
Illuminor. Yeah.
Instead of Illuminor.
Yeah. And then just earlier in the show, Zacchaeus.
Yeah. What did I say? Like fucking pickle.
Yeah,
Chadavius. I don't know.
Yeah, Chadavius. Joel says it was hard to watch that game. Embarrassing.
That's kind of why I stopped trying to. The only thing that brought me back into the game was Aiden O'Connell. The game was over, dude.
He was in with 6 minutes left,
if not less. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, O'Connell should have been starting, to begin with.
Yeah, he should have. And I think as far as Bagent, maybe the Raiders defense were thrown off because all the film that they have on the Bears are completely different running backs and a quarterback that does not throw 2.5 yards per play. Instead, he might go and run. He might go and do this. He might throw to DJ Moore. Instead, in this game, it was just chunk. And apparently they weren't ready for that, even though that's like the one thing that you can be ready for. I don't know. I just whatever.
Yeah. And let's see here.
I mean, Bagent probably just took everything that the Raiders gave them, and the Raiders just kept giving it to him, because they're totally a bend don't break defense. Like they'll give you the under every time and hope that they can stop you on third down. But when you keep getting chunks and keep succeeding, And they were running like if there were runs of like 15 yards multiple times, I feel like for the Bears running backs. So it just wasn't good.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say was like after the game, I think they asked about getting Aiden O'Connell more playing time, and Josh McDaniels said something like that I found very interesting. He was like, "Well, this isn't the preseason anymore," and so Mr. McDaniels, if I may follow up, if it's not the preseason anymore, why aren't you trying to beat the other team that's playing their backup quarterback?
And if it's not the preseason anymore, and that's your reasoning for not playing Aiden O'Connell, why did you start him against the Chargers? Which felt like a complete reversal of what was reported all week, which was, oh, Brian Hoyer's going to be the starter. Like from my point of view, it felt like all of the fans were making it clear we want Aiden O'Connell in this game, and then at the very last second, it was, oh, Aiden O'Connell starting. And they made it sound like, oh, all week we slowly ramped it up to where it was going to be Aiden. But I was like, this feels like it was last second, And Aiden O'Connell I thought he was okay in the Charger game. It's just that he was getting pressure up the ass from Khalil Mack and company.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't know where he wanted to go with the ball. But I would be more inclined to trust what I saw in the preseason than, like you said, against all that pressure they were facing from Mack and Bosa, especially Mack. He had 6 sacks in that game.
Yeah.
But all right, let me play devil's advocate here. Let me just sort of walk through the logic of why or how Josh McDaniels probably ended up starting Brian Hoyer. So, if I had to guess, O'Connell, obviously had the turnover late in the Charger game and, looked kind of lost in the game against the Chargers, right? So, what's his face? Has that in his mind. McDaniels has that in his mind. And then Hoyer is typically the backup on game days, right? Like, Hoyer is more similar to Jimmy Garoppolo than O'Connell is to Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Yeah. So the drop off is like it's not necessarily like that much different. Like he's still just trying to run the offense and like do everything that they worked on the entire training camp and not have everything drastically change for everybody. I get that. And then against the Patriots, Hoyer went in because he was already the backup, right? Like he's the Jimmy G replacement, so to speak. And then Hoyer didn't look that bad against the Patriots, did he?
I didn't think he looked that bad, but he also did not get the offense going by any means. Like he led them to like 2 field goals and let's say 6 drives, maybe 5. So I didn't care for it, but I also didn't hate it against the Patriots.
Yeah.
He didn't lose the game.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to that. I think he was afraid that O'Connell might lose the game to the Bears. And he's like, you know what? I don't think, he's probably like, Brian Hoyer, I probably know what to expect more out of him than Aiden O'Connell. And I think he probably felt like this game should have been a layup. And
yeah, they probably slept on the Bears, honestly. Maybe just the coaching staff, but I think so.
Yeah. So he thought it was a layup, and he didn't want O'Connell to go in. Like O'Connell's got a mid-range jump shot, and Brian Hoyer and Jimmy Garoppolo, they can make layups. They've shown to make layups, and I think that McDaniels was just, thinking O'Connell smokes layups, or he smoked a layup last time. And the Chargers weren't a layup, but you get the metaphor. So I think that was on his mind, and he's like, I'm not going to lose a winnable game to get this guy reps. So that's probably why he had the preseason comments, oh, this isn't the preseason, but also he's like pissed off because like they just lost what should have been a very winnable game.
Yeah.
And not only that, they got blown out.
Yeah, they got fucking killed. Yeah, I think I agree with your thought process and what might have been his McDaniel's thought process on the quarterback decision. I just hindsight 2020 here, but what I saw from Hoyer was a guy who didn't lose a game that you guys were already winning. Whereas what I saw from O'Connell against the Chargers was a guy who almost mounted a comeback in a game where he was sacked 6 times by one guy, and the defense was giving it up at points. So I think in hindsight now and moving forward, I would much rather see Aiden O'Connell because he actually gives your team a chance when your team is actually tied, whereas Brian Hoyer simply, for the love of God, does not. He does not lead the offense to 6 points. He leads the offense to 3 points or 6 points for the other team. That's what Brian Hoyer leads you to.
You know what Brian Hoyer does pretty well?
What?
Just get you closer to the next week. doesn't do anything else that well except for deceiving me at the Niner. Besides deceiving me at the Niner Open practice.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to a little bit more comments, and then we're gonna move on to Devontae. Fonzie said Joel kick rocks. Hey, Fonzie, if you watch this later, be nice. We're supposed to get the fan base. When we first made this channel, we figured there might be a little smack talk in the comments. It's inevitable. It's the internet. Internet's undefeated. Okay, I'm not gonna go here and challenge the internet. But come on, let's just be nice. Okay. Joel says offensive guru. Yeah. You know what's funny though? I've been on that boat with Shanahan before too. So it's funny how like similar the situations are a little bit, but how different that they're playing out currently.
Mm.
So Shanahan wasn't good in the first 2 years. There was a lot of turnover and everything, but I mean, McDaniels, he just lacked creativity in this game. It was just drop back and, throw to double covered people and then Jacobs run up the middle. Like the week before, I felt like he was a lot more creative. Or maybe even the week before that. So, why is Brian Hoyer starting a game as a Raider? He's 87 years old and hasn't won a game since 2016.
No, you mean 1916.
Damn, you know what? That's probably right. Because I was like, well, he started games in 2017.
He was with the Bears, wasn't he?
No, in 2016, yeah. But in 2017, he was with the Niners. So if he hasn't won a game since 2016, yeah, because I don't think he won one. CJ Beathard was the quarterback when they got their first win under Shanahan, so he didn't win one there. If Hoyer hasn't won since 2016, I was told that a certain quarterback, who his name rhymes with Schmallen Schmappernick, I was told that they can't play because the last time that he, won games in the NFL was how many years ago? And, I guess if they know that you're bad, you can play.
Yeah, I mean, what this is...
You have no no political stance on anything. Like, I don't even know if Brian Hoyer has a favorite meal. Like, I don't know shit about Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, I just remember when they signed him, the big talk was like, oh, when he was with like the Patriots or whoever, he was really keyed in on helping the defense because he knows the offense so well and yada, 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 and like helping the defense game plan and shit. I was like, okay, like that's cool. He's a coach on the field, but I don't want to see him on the field. Like I knew I never did. And yeah, to be quite honest with you, I'd much rather see Colin Kaepernick start a game for the Raiders than fucking Hoyer. But the problem here is that Hoyer is a scheme fit for McDaniels, and that's kind of the ongoing trend with this offense as a whole. So,
call me crazy. I would rather see Jamarcus Russell come out of retirement and try to make a comeback with the Raiders than to watch Brian Hoyer play in the start of the game. Like, is that a hot take? Like,
I'm laughing because I would too.
yeah.
It's so stupid, but like
Yeah.
I'd be way more entertained. I'd just sit there like, damn, he could still throw. Fuck.
Like,
Even though
hey,
like all I can see is his belly right now.
hey, instead of the Raiders just being a bad team that's like absolutely miserable to watch, why not have it be the circus? Like,
Yeah.
you know, hey, Jamarcus Russell's coming in town. You know, sell tickets that way. Like, make
Yeah.
it a show.
It's literally Vegas where like every week it's a different fucking act. This week it's Colin Kaepernick. Come back next week for Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah. After
Next
that,
week-
Robert Griffin is coming back. Robert
And don't
Griffin
forget
might
to come
actually
in
still.
week 16 for Johnny Manziel.
Yeah. Oh my god, dude. Why doesn't a
That-
team do that? Like, it would
If you
sell
want
tickets.
the first overall pick, you could sell tickets and you could suck, but it'd be fun.
You know who should actually do that? The XFL. The XFL should
Oh.
actually sign these guys. They
Well,
would get
didn't
way more
saw
viewers.
I saw that The Rock sent like a letter or something to Kaepernick because Kaepernick sent a letter to the Jets recently when week 1 when
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers got hurt.
I think Kaepernick had a meeting with The Rock, you know, in the XFL, but I don't, you know, The Rock said he doesn't anticipate Kaepernick's going to play. I think they want him. I don't know what the deal is. But if I was Kaepernick, I mean, the NFL, it's not going to happen in the NFL anymore. Like, you show
if I'm
everybody,
Kaepernick-
that you can still play by playing in the XFL and be the MVP there.
Yep. If I'm Kaepernick, I'm looking at PJ Walker, who is starting games for the Browns or playing in games because Deshaun Watson's been hurt, and I'm saying that's my best bet is going to the XFL or USFL and killing it because I deserve to be in the NFL and proving that that's true, right? And then a team will probably take you seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because the amount of time it's been since he's last played, it's like it's unrealistic. But yeah, like Jamarcus Russell, Johnny Manziel aside, like actually, like Colin Kaepernick is more interesting to me than Brian Hoyer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like other names that the Raiders could suit up, and I would rather see that.
Jeff Garcia.
You know
Rich
what's funny,
Gannon.
Jeff? Yeah.
David Carr.
Derek Carr. Just playing. We lost to a Division II quarterback. Yeah. It was a rough week.
Yeah.
Fonzie's got a couple Niner comments. I know Fonzie already tuned out, so I'm just gonna, move
You
past
know what
him.
this game? You know what this game feels like is like the Colts game last year against fucking that head coach.
Minshew? Oh,
No, well,
Jeff Saturday.
That's what this Bears game feels like. Except instead of the head coach, it's the quarterback. Like you cannot lose to that guy.
Yeah,
That's
it's
insane.
a game that you can't lose, but the Raiders lost convincingly.
Yeah.
So, Joel says this was the perfect game to start Aiden against a rookie. Rookie versus rookie. Oh, Aiden again, rookie versus rookie.
Yeah.
Hoyer being our backup has been a huge red flag. Yeah, it's really reflective of the coach, I think. And then it's decisions like this. Like, I don't know how long Josh McDaniels is going to last as the Raider head coach. Pissing off the fan base this much and, looking this bad. Like, it's not just that he's, making mistakes. It's that it's the monumental or, the magnitude of the mistakes or at least the appearance of it. It's like a bad look on the Raiders. Like,
Mhm.
it's one thing to be looking and rebuilding, or looking bad and like looking to rebuild. Like, I don't know what the Raiders are doing. They sort of gave off the vibe that they were like, ready to compete. And maybe we just placed that vibe on them, like, after we got really high on them in the preseason. But what I think it was too is not only did they sign Jimmy Garoppolo, but they restructured him. So you are now financially on the hook for him for the next 2 years. So through our lenses, we're looking and we're like, all right, so this is the vision that you had for the team the next couple years.
Yeah.
You're not doing
It's not
yourself any
good.
favors. Yeah, you're not doing yourself any favors. So let's talk about Davante Adams and whether or not the Raiders should trade Davante Adams. Now, this was sort of a bonus topic that Mike wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about this at all. I just threw it out there. Let's just add this in here because I have thoughts. I was kind of going through the stats of other players. So Davante Adams, in the first quarter, Davante Adams had 5 catches for 48 yards. That's great. That's really good. In one quarter, right? You multiply that by 4, and he has 20 catches for 200 yards and maybe a touchdown or 2, right? He ended the game with 7 catches for 57 yards. So in the first quarter, again, 5 catches, 50 yards, let's say. The next 3 quarters, you could only get him to complete. You could only complete 2 more passes to him for 18, 19 yards. What happened? Did the Bears just start selling out for Davante Adams and told you to beat them some other way? And obviously you couldn't. At the end of the game, there was a nice end zone target where Davante got himself open with a nice quick little move on the corner, and it just Hoyer just sailed it just out of the reach of his fingertips. Like, it hit his fingertips, but it was also like awkward and he couldn't catch it. And obviously his night would be way better with like 8 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown, right? On a game with a backup quarterback, it's like, that's solid. That would have been better than Jacoby Myers' stats of 7 for 50 and a touchdown. And honestly, I don't know how many targets Davante Adams had. Let me look really quick. But obviously the question at hand is, should the Raiders trade Davante Adams? Josh, do you have any thoughts about this?
It depends what you can get for him. The Raiders traded away a first round pick, right? First and a second.
First and a second in that upcoming draft. So two seasons ago. So not this past draft, but the draft before that.
It really depends, whether, like, what's the direction that McDaniels and Ziegler want to go. If they're going to move forward with Jimmy Garoppolo, get Davante Adams out of here, and get a pretty good return if you can get it. And I think teams would be willing to pay up for Davante. If you and here's why I would say it is necessary, if you're going to be successful in the NFL, to have a better quarterback option than Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's absolutely necessary, or you need guys who are more like the Niners receivers, where they're yards after catch. But those guys don't last long because all that contact, it's not a sustainable way to operate, I would say. I think that more likely than not, you should keep Adams, and you really need to draft or trade for a good quarterback who can utilize him. Like, imagine if you go into the offseason and let's just say you don't have a top pick where you can get a guy like Caleb Williams or, any of the top, quarterback prospects. How would you feel, Mike, if Kirk Cousins was the quarterback of the team next year with Davante Adams? Like,
Oh,
it would be a
that's a great
huge
question.
upgrade. It would be a huge upgrade over Garoppolo.
It just I cannot stand the fact that they restructured his contract. That's so annoying because I think it's very likely that Kirk Cousins stays with the Vikings. But if they decide, oh, we want to go in a different direction, the Vikings want to blow it up, and the only player they keep is Jefferson or something, I'd feel way better about Kirk Cousins. I feel like he would fit McDaniels, but at the same time, be very, very open to throwing the ball deep, and he would fit Davante Adams very well.
And he's
Yeah,
tough. He doesn't miss a lot of time.
yeah. I
Derek Carr
never
didn't
thought
miss a
of
lot of time either. And honestly, Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins are kind of similar in a lot of ways. I just think that the Kirk Cousins doesn't come across like the way that Derek Carr does, where you mentioned that you thought that maybe some players would like kind of scoff at him in the locker room. Was that you?
Yeah, I think that was me. Yeah.
Um,
Here's my issue with Kirk Cousins though is the cost. Like the only reason I was okay with Garoppolo was because he was pretty cheap for a starting quarterback.
mhm.
And the mentality I've had all this time since I was greenlighting the idea of getting rid of Derek Carr, was I want the Raiders to draft a quarterback soon. Doesn't have to be last year's draft or the year before that. It doesn't have to be this year's upcoming draft. It just needs to be soon, and they need to have a plan for it, and they need to build up the team at least enough to where it's ready to compete when he walks in and starts playing. Probably more so year 2 of that quarterback, his career, because the rookie quarterback contract is a huge advantage for teams if they can utilize that with a good roster surrounding him. So that's what I want. I want a cheap rookie quarterback starting for the team, successful, has the ability to become a top 5 quarterback in the league, right? And obviously he has the players and the tools around him and the coaching around him to succeed. And I can't help but think that the coaches are not suited to help a quarterback succeed. I think as the weeks and the years go by, more and more it feels that it is proven that Tom Brady was the sole reason for the Patriots dynasty. Along with their defense. Their defenses were good, but I think he carried McDaniels and I think he carried Belichick. That is what is starting to become pretty apparent to me. Because Belichick isn't getting it done anymore. Fucking any chance that Josh McDaniels has gotten, he's sucked. But that's a different topic. It's just
Give Belichick a little credit. They did just beat the Bills, who are one of the best teams in the NFL right now, and he did it with Mac Jones.
Yeah, I mean Belichick is still great, and I think he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. I just think, from what I've seen, like Belichick's teams since Brady have not been very good, and McDaniels has not been very good. And what was the one thing when they had Brady? They were the best team in football, bar none. So there was a level of execution that was different when they had him.
Real quick, hanging on that, if I'm not mistaken, the Patriots were in the NFC Championship game before Brady.
I mean
AFC. They were deep in the playoffs, like before Brady, right?
They had Bledsoe. Yeah, Bledsoe was supposed to be this great quarterback, and then he got hurt, and Brady came in.
And Belichick was the coach then, still?
I would assume, yeah.
So, Brady went to an already good team.
Yeah.
And then he was a system quarterback at first, and they built him up, and then they gave him Randy Moss, and the rest was history. Like they built up Brady to, I mean, he won a Super Bowl.
He won before Randy Moss, and he
I
probably
mean,
won even more without him, or after Randy Moss. I mean, Randy Moss didn't win with them actually, and like that was their best, most prolific offense. But Brady, it did not matter as long as Brady had a solid defense, and I mean, most of the time they were a great defense, but they were owning the time of possession on offense. Just like the 2019 Niners offense, right? But their quarterback play was immaculate.
Like if you're telling me that Brady would have like ended up on the Cleveland Browns, or the Chicago Bears,
right?
I don't know if Brady is the same person that we are today. So I think Belichick deserves a little bit of credit, and this topic
he definitely does.
isn't
I'm not
Belichick.
trying to shit on Belichick. It's just I'm really
He doesn't look good
praising.
this year.
No, I'm really just praising Tom Brady because everybody that has ever left the Patriots to be a head coach has fucking sucked, and they're all Belichick proteges, right? And now Belichick doesn't have Brady anymore, and the first year without him, I think they made the playoffs. Maybe the second year, I don't know. They made the playoffs with Mac Jones like a year or two ago. Other than that, they have not been that good, right? They can win games, obviously. Yeah, they're going to beat their divisional opponents here and there, but I'm curious to see how Belichick's remainder of his career goes and how short it will be.
You bring up a good point about Belichick's, is the term disciples?
Yeah.
About how they've all bombed everywhere they go.
The best one has been Mike Vrabel.
Because just a couple of years ago, people would compare, Belichick to Bill Walsh, and Bill Walsh had, 3 Super Bowls, and Bill Belichick has 6, right? And you could definitely make the argument for Belichick, but we've talked about it. Belichick is sort of hurting his legacy right now. But one thing about Bill Walsh, and not to like steer the conversation down a rabbit hole, I'll just say this: Walsh's disciples have more often than not been successful, and Belichick's have all bombed.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm overlooking some, but
right.
But back to the Raiders, back to your thought, Mike.
Well, I don't know what really got us all the way on that. Just probably we were talking about the quarterbacks and whatnot. But as far as Davante Adams goes, and specifically revolving around this Bears game, he had 12 targets, right? And again, he had 5 catches, 48 yards in the first quarter. Clearly, the Raiders started the game with the urgency to get him the ball, right? Like, I'm sure that was the opening game script and really the first quarter. Like, let's get Davante Adams the ball, because if you've paid attention in the media the past 2, maybe 3, probably since week 2 when they lost to the Bills, like, the media has been, oh, if the Raiders suck, will Davante Adams want to leave? Like, everybody's just it feels like the media is forcing this idea that Davante Adams definitely needs to leave. Like, he wants to leave. If the Raiders were to trade him, here's your best 5 options. Like, there's been nothing out of the Raiders locker room, specifically from Davante Adams, that suggests that he's demanding a trade. But yet the thought is so commonly out there that I can't help but wonder if he wants to be traded, right? I can't help but wonder if he's like, I'm over this. Like, it's clear that this isn't going to work. At what point does Josh McDaniels lose Davante Adams' faith? Did Davante Adams ever have faith in him?
It's long gone, dude.
And that's the other question, is because this is also a Josh McDaniels conversation to be had here, but I wonder if he has lost the entire locker room.
I feel like the moment where he probably lost Davante Adams' faith was when they benched Carr last season and decided they were just going to move him. Because one of the main reasons why Adams came here was because he thought Carr was going to be his quarterback. Now he's got quarterback uncertainty, and he's got to go through the quarterback carousel every week of like, all right, Jimmy Garoppolo 1 week, Hoyer 1 week, O'Connell 1 quarter, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely not fun for him. He's literally going through quarterback purgatory right now.
Yeah, and he's getting hospital balls galore. Oh my God, Adams is getting killed out there.
I mean, I haven't noticed it too much, but last week against the
Patriots,
yeah, he had that one that was bad. But I mean, getting 12 targets a game, like his stats shouldn't be too bad. But granted, I mean, he's I don't think he's gotten a 100-yard game since, let's say, week 3. Like, it's been a couple weeks since he's gotten a 100-yard game. Like, I don't know how much he cares about the stats. He's very adamant, and I really believe him, that he just wants to win, and he just wants to win with this team, because that would be the most satisfying thing, is to turn this franchise around, right? But that's what Derek Carr tried to do for 10 plus years, or 8 or 9, whatever it was. He only had one successful year, or technically 2 with 2021, but like, it seems like it's a very tough road to and uphill road, to make that change for a franchise like this.
I've got a really interesting trade idea.
Go ahead.
Originally, I was going to go with, Ayuk and another pick, but this might be even better for both teams. Mm-hmm. How would you feel about Deebo Samuel in a second-round pick for Davante Adams?
Man, Deebo and the Raiders would be interesting. It depends on what the situation is with Davante. Because basically, to answer the question at hand, should the Raiders trade Davante Adams? I think it's yes, but it's also if. I don't think this regime wants to trade him, partially because that's been the ongoing statement every fucking week from any given reporter, is the Raiders have said or made it clear to NFL teams that they are not trading Davante Adams. Like, I'm sure teams are calling, wondering, and they're like, we're not trading him. No chance. And maybe it's to drive up the price of, hey, he's unattainable, but then you overwhelm me and here you go, And I hope, I'm not going to lie to you, I hope so. Mm-hmm. Here's my issue. December 24th, 1992 is his birth date. He will be turning 31 years old this year. And I still think he's arguably the best wide receiver in football. I really do believe that. To answer your question, Deebo in a second, that doesn't quite get it done for me. But it would be acceptable, because I could see it being worse. What I could see happening is, come trade deadline, or this offseason, but come trade deadline, the Raiders have not won a game since the Patriots game, and he's livid. He's getting 50 yards a game, 7 to 8 catches, hardly any touchdowns. Quarterback play is atrocious. Makes it obvious in the public, I want out. The moment he does that, his value just decreased in a trade, because now teams know he could hold out, he could throw a fit, he could do whatever. The Raiders can do nothing about it but trade him. And there comes a point where that cost keeps going down and down and down until finally the Raiders go,
you get nothing.
Fine. Like, yeah, you get nothing. You get here's a third-round pick for Davante Adams. Remember when? Well, we don't remember this, but the Raiders traded Randy Moss for a 4th-round pick because he was going out there and jogging on every play, until finally the Raiders just gave up and traded him to the Patriots. I don't think Davante Adams is ever going to jog, at least not regularly on a play or on plays, but If he decides to make it apparent that he wants out, he can make it tough on them. So if that's what's going on behind closed doors, trade him for a first rounder, maybe a first plus, while you still can. And maybe because you give a first and a second 2 years ago, his age has gone up, so his value's gone down. Maybe it's first rounder, period. Maybe Debo in a second is actually really fair and actually the best thing they can get. Maybe.
Because I figure Debo has showed that he can play to Jimmy Garoppolo's strengths, throwing at the line of scrimmage, run up, yards after the catch, like there's a connection there.
Yeah.
Right.
And
then you get a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the Niners side, they get a receiver who will be on the field more often. And, one of the best receivers in football.
Yeah. I mean, that's ring chasing 101 right there. I was actually going to bring up, I think the number one team that makes sense to me to trade for him is the 49ers. And the reason why is because his list, if he were to allow a trade, and granted he doesn't have a no trade clause, I'm like fairly positive. So the Raiders could trade him to like the Lions or something. But the big talk was he wanted to come because Derek Carr was here. And I think most importantly to him, other than the Raiders being like his hometown team and stuff, but most importantly was that his family, specifically his grandparents, were close because they're in the West Coast. So the Raiders are not trading him to the Chargers. I don't think Davante Adams wants to go to the Rams because they're not at all in the running for a Super Bowl. And he would have to compete with Cooper Kupp and
Puka
Nacua. They can't afford him. The Rams have no cap space. So,
and the Rams need to trade for Derrick Henry, not for Davante Adams.
Yeah,
they're fine at receiver.
Yeah, they're more than fine. The Niners have what, 40 plus million in cap space? They are suited to make that deal. And actually, they could restructure the deal down to 1 year and allow Davante Adams to become a free agent if they don't want to keep the contract going. He'll probably accept that because he's still at the top of his game.
The Niners don't really need Debo anymore the way that they did before. Like when they signed his extension, once they traded for McCaffrey, it was like, I thought they would still use Debo and they would use both out of the backfield, but it was like, no, it's McCaffrey or die.
Yeah. The more I think about it, Debo in a second
is fair.
Makes sense. I think it makes sense for both teams.
Maybe it's not fair, but it makes sense for both teams.
Yeah, I still think a first rounder for Davante, maybe with a player. Like, I guess the thing I was thinking is like, let's say, this is hypothetical, he would not be traded to this team, but let's say they trade him to the Seahawks. Like, I would want Tyler Lockett and I guess a first. I don't know. That's tough. I mean, really what I was actually thinking is like a third string wide receiver and a first round pick. That's what I was thinking for Davante.
Or check this out. If you want to get more convoluted, it would be Davante Adams and a third for Debo and a first. And probably a sixth.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me, and that would do it for me for sure. I would take that. Yeah.
So and it sucks. That's more along the lines like probably more realistic, instead of like, 2 for 1.
Yeah. Yeah, like I have these notes. Basically, I'm like ready to go on a tirade about they need to fire Josh McDaniels. And that was the other thing. Like, I really don't think this regime wants to trade Davante because he was like their baby that they first, like that was their big move that they first did. They didn't have a first round pick or a second round pick when they first came into this team because they traded for him. So I think his value to them is like through the roof, right? So it's going to take a lot for them to actually get rid of him, I think. But I think this team is so fucked with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, and your offensive players are kind of just aging, right? Between your quarterback, your Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs in running back years is in a year or two going to be up there. The only young offensive player you have is Michael Mayer. That's it. And Dylan Parham at left guard, who is kind of hit or miss on any given play. So I don't know. I can't help but think that this team needs to rebuild. They need to attain draft picks. They need to fire Josh McDaniels, and they should do it. If Josh McDaniels has lost the locker room, they should do it tomorrow. They should fire him immediately. You can keep Ziegler the rest of the year. That's fine by me, but you can relieve him of his duties at the end of the year because this was a joint effort, right? And the Patriot way should not be a thing with this team. I saw a tweet that was like, all those years in Oakland of losing, and even in Vegas the past couple years with like Gruden, they sucked, but they had the Raiders mystique. It was still the Raider way. Like, it feels like with Josh McDaniels, they've lost their identity. They've lost their way. And I don't know if I fully agree with that, but I totally see it. I see the point made. This feels like a wannabe, obviously a wannabe Patriots, but like, I don't know, like this wannabe poster child team that just fucking sucks, and their offense blows massive horsecock, and their defense has always been bad. It's like, you need to get a young offensive mind in here and a general manager that actually can make fucking moves to get young talent on this team. And you need a new quarterback. Bad.
So here's what I'll say. I don't know why my thought just it just slipped my mind. But I'll start off with this. Head coaching candidate that I would want for the Raiders, and I've been saying this for a very, very long time. I think it's been 2 coaching hire cycles that the Raiders have gone through, and every single time I say the Raiders should hire this guy. It should be Jim Harbaugh. I think Jim Harbaugh is a hell of a coach. He's the favorite coach that I've ever witnessed in the NFL. I think if you get Harbaugh, you can the franchise can turn itself around. And towards the end of his tenure with the Niners, I heard that he had lost the locker room. So I'm not saying Harbaugh's perfect, but it seems like he went to Michigan, and Michigan is like a top 10 school, right? Or a top 10 college football team. Harbaugh instills confidence, and really, like, he's absolutely a football guy who, understands the game very well. He doesn't knock down his own players. He's an ex-Raider. He fits the profile of the Raiders. I feel like he would get the Raiders back to the whole, it's us against the world. And that's what it was. You were talking about Josh McDaniels having, sort of going away from the Raider way. Over the past 20 years, the only Raider way that I really know has been like, dog shit and like, embarrassment and, like this and that. But where Josh McDaniels differs from the coaches before him, it got this way for most of the coaches before him, besides like John Gruden and Hugh Jackson. I feel like it's getting to that point where this looks very bad, and it's like, it's just time to move on. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't working, and there's no vision where this is going to work.
Yeah. I think maybe part of what that tweet that I'd seen about the Raider mystique or whatever going away. Maybe part of it for this person, they don't realize it, is the fact that they moved on from Derek Carr. And we had such a long tenure with him, which we hadn't had in a long time with a quarterback, to where that might have been a culture shock for some fans of like, well, we like this is a different quarterback paired with this coach that we already don't like. And our offense statistically is absolutely horrible. I just, I don't know. But Jim Harbaugh, yeah, he's a great candidate. I would be very excited at the prospect of him as our head coach because I think he is a great locker room guy and he's great with quarterbacks. My only issue is not with him, but I just can't find it to be realistic because I think he's very much all in on Michigan. That's his alma mater, and I think he is going to do everything he can to win a national championship with them. As long as he finds it to be realistic, right?
Well, the Raiders just got to slide him an offer that he can't refuse.
Yeah. And you know what? That's another conversation though. A lot of people wonder if, I think maybe you brought this up or somebody commented this, I don't know, like previously, that perhaps Mark Davis doesn't have the money to fire Josh McDaniels because he owes him X amount of money and he might still be paying Gruden, which I kind of doubt that because of the way that he ended up not being relieved of his duties, but
Canceled.
Well, he was canceled, but he had to fire himself, or the fuck the term is.
Resign.
He resigned, yeah, which usually means like no more paying me, but I could be wrong. But theoretically, if Mark Davis is having issues with paying money out of his own pocket to like a coach like Josh McDaniels,
you're saying reinstate Gruden?
No, I'm just saying you won't be able to afford Jim Harbaugh coming out of Michigan. There's no chance. And like I think the worry is that forces him to keep McDaniels, but really what it would do for me is you still fucking fire him and then you just hire a coach who's up and coming, deserves a shot, but isn't demanding top fucking dollar like I'm sure McDaniels was, and I'm positive Jim Harbaugh would, and I know for a fact John Gruden did. Stop going for these overpaid fucking idiots. I'm not saying that about Harbaugh, but the other two, sorry, but yeah. And go for a guy like Ben Johnson or something like that who is up and coming, has not been a head coach yet, so isn't going to demand top dollar. And hopefully he's good in the locker room and he's very smart and has a good track record on his offense or defensive play calling.
You know who might be cheap, who might be available probably this offseason? Who's currently a head coach right now?
In the NFL or college?
NFL. And I'm not saying this coach is doing a good job or anything, but I think they're a good guy. And like,
oh, Ron Rivera.
Yep.
Yeah. I just like I'm fine with that. I do think that a locker room guy will matter for the next coach. But whoever they get, he has to get great coordinators. Like that's my thing. If it's going to be a guy like, let's say we get a special teams head coach like a Rich Bisaccia or John,
who they should have
Harbaugh.
Kept in retrospect.
Yeah, they absolutely should have. He was a locker room guy. That's a fucking locker room guy for you. And then you could have kept him and just had him find the best possible coordinators. And maybe they probably would have kept, I'm forgetting his name, but the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at the time.
Was it Todd Downs?
No, no. Oh, geez. Greg? damn it, I don't know, but he was a Derek Carr guy. You know, they would have kept Carr and so forth. So, but
Yeah.
anyway,
So
I mean, this is a long.
should they trade Adams?
I say yes. I say yes because they should rebuild. And
I think
the
it de-
longer you keep him, the lower his value is going to get, and he's not going to get us anywhere. I'm sorry. Like, I would rather see him go somewhere else and succeed than just stay on the Raiders and be pissed off and just make this team look even worse. Like but there
No, you
is
don't.
the other side of that is if you trade him, the rest of the team immediately their morale is sunk. They're like, well, this season's done. So there is that aspect to it, but still, it's like there's a process to this, and it's a business. And if I think you have to fire Josh McDaniels, and once you do that, you go to Devontae and you ask him, "What do you want to do? What do you want to stay, or do you want to seek a trade? Do you want like what do you want? Who do you want us to play at quarterback? Right? I'm not saying put Devontae in charge, but I would fire
Let him
if
have
I were.
say either
Yeah.
keep him happy or respect his wishes.
Yeah, if I'm in charge, I'm firing Josh McDaniels tomorrow, and I really don't like anybody to take over, to coach and play call. Like, I don't believe in Mick Lombardi. I'm sorry. I guess I would probably promote our defensive coordinator. I'm forgetting his name right now. And I would go to Devontae Adams and say, what is best for you? What do you want to do? Do you want us to target you 20 times a game, or do you want us to trade you? Do you want us to try to trade you at the trade deadline, or do you want to wait till the offseason and kind of come back to it? What do you want to do?
Well, there are now how many days left? 7 days?
Till the trade deadline?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, week 8 makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that sounds about
I think
right.
the 31st is the deadline.
Yeah. And I mean, along with that comes Hunter Renfrow, who probably will get traded, but if he doesn't, then I don't know if this is his last year under contract, but he'll just, unless McDaniels is fired, he will just stay the same and then in the offseason leave,
Mm-hmm. Or O'Connell will take over and Renfrow might be relevant again. So
yeah, maybe. But yeah, my whole point to all this is if I were in charge, I would look to trade Devontae Adams to try to acquire picks for this team to rebuild. And it sucks. It sucks to say it, but I also think wide receiver is a position that you can, I wouldn't say easily, but it is a very replaceable position. Mm-hmm. You can find guys relatively quickly at wide receiver. And I think Jacoby Myers is a great start. I think he's fine. I'm not saying he's a number 1 in this league, but he's fine. He's great.
He was a number 1 in New England.
Yeah, and he's been very consistent for us. And again, I think Devontae Adams helps tremendously with that. But, you can have an offense with Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers, and you draft and sign other receivers. You already have Trey Tucker, the speedy guy, so just go out and get some fucking bodies and see what happens, man. And then you can, again, trade Devontae for good picks, fire Josh McDaniels, bring in a new offensive scheme, and see where that takes you at the quarterback position. This draft is looking like it's going to be loaded at quarterback. So, I just think at this rate, if they're going to suck, which it looks like they are, I'm firing the coach, and I'm looking at the roster, and I'm going, who is worth keeping and who isn't? And then you go from there. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's give our predictions for Raiders versus Lions. Mike, I'm going to let you go first with this one.
The Lions are coming off of a really bad outing for themselves. They lost like 6-38 or something like that to the Ravens. And that was in Baltimore. This game against the Raiders is going to be in Detroit, prime time. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play. At least I'm pretty sure.
Is it confirmed?
I don't know if it's confirmed, but I'm like pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I saw a tweet that said like Jimmy Garoppolo's in line to play next week, or he's expected to play week 8 or whatever. So I mean that's a plus. I'll tell you one thing that's not going to happen. You're not going to develop the run against the Lions. I think they've been the toughest, if not the Browns or Niners, the toughest team to run on this season. So you're not going to have a run game. I don't know how well they've done against the pass, but Jacoby Myers will have a fine game. And we'll see about Devontae. He'll be fine, but but I don't see it for the Raiders. I definitely don't. I think Amon-Ra is going to go crazy on him. He's going to have like 15 targets, 11 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Sam Laporta will have a bounce back game. He'll have like 5 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. I'm assuming David Montgomery won't play, so Jahmyr Gibbs, this might be his breakout game. I mean, statistically, the Ravens game was, but on Monday Night Football, where he's the lone starter, this might be his breakout game. And then Jared Goff he's going to be playing at home. He'll go off. So
I'm going to give you a scenario that I just thought about. So I'm going to pick the Lions to win this. I think that they're too explosive. And their defense is too good, I think, to lose to a team like the Raiders. Granted, I've been wrong, like the past couple weeks. Even with the Niners too. Hold on, I was right last week, but I was wrong, with the Packers game. This is the scenario I'm going to paint to you. The Raiders get blown out on national television to the Lions. And Josh McDaniels gets fired after the game.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, continue.
What was it, Mike? Me like cookie.
I want Milky.
No. The cookie. Like when I ordered the Cookie Monster at Mel's.
Oh God. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You like cookie?
Yeah. Something like that. All right. I don't know. My gut is telling me that this game is going to be a blowout. Well, you never know with the primetime games, but I just think that the talent difference is there. I think that it's going to be tough for the Raiders to stop Jahmyr Gibbs because he can not only run the ball, he can receive it out of the backfield. Amon-Ra is healthy, right? He's going to be playing. The Raiders are going to absolutely have to do a lot on defense. And I heard this thing that Jared Goff plays better indoors, like in indoor stadiums.
He's like his track record the past 2 seasons is when he plays at home, he's like phenomenal. When he plays away, he's usually not that good. But he's had a couple of away games this season where he's really good. Maybe being indoors is a part of that, but at Ford Field, they're indoors.
Yeah, so I don't know if I could definitely see like Jared Goff, being. Do you remember that? You've seen Benchwarmers, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember Nick Swartzen's character in that movie? The one that
he always had a oh.
The one that couldn't go outside.
He was afraid of the light or whatever.
He was afraid of the sun.
Yeah. Yes.
Hold on. I gotta pull up a clip with one. Let's see. YouTube. Oh, you know what? I don't want copyright or anything, but just with the bottle of sunscreen, so afraid of the sun. Maybe Jared Goff is just maybe he's that character.
He's been pretty damn good. I'm really excited to see the Lions in the playoffs. I know it's not guaranteed yet, but it feels like they're going to win this division. They're going to be the team that I'm most excited to watch as a Raider fan. So
I don't think the Lions are going to be a serious Super Bowl contender until they move off from Goff. That's my honest gut feeling. To be a serious Super Bowl contender, they can be a playoff team. They're going to be a playoff team this year. They're extremely talented and they play well. It's just that Goff is the reason why they're not a wild card team, but like not a wild card team factually, like literally, but like a wild card. You know what I mean? Like
I know
you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Like if they had a top tier quarterback, you were talking about the Lions might be the favorite in the NFC.
Yeah, I think you give them a top 5 quarterback. Yes. I also think with Goff, if you gave them a top 5 defense, I think they'd be a legitimate Super Bowl contender paired with that offense, So long as he plays well, that again, he is still a very much a wild card because he can go out there any given week and pass for 400 yards. He can also go out there and pass for like 180 with 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and completely lose the game for them. It hasn't happened a lot for them recently, but he's still
just under the sun.
Yeah.
So maybe I wonder, can Jahmyr Gibbs hold an umbrella for him? Don't pass protect for him. Just hold an umbrella so that way the sunlight doesn't expose him. Or, I don't know. But I'm officially going to pick the Lions to win this game. And my gut tells me a blowout. But if it's a close game, oh well, sue me.
Yeah, I'm also picking the Lions. I'm hoping for a close game. I mean, the Steelers versus Raiders Sunday night game in week 3 was pretty shitty until like the third or fourth quarter. And then the Raiders made it close and interesting. The Packers game for the Raiders was a good game for the Raiders, but I came out of it feeling mixed because I couldn't help but feel like that game's going to bite us in the ass later and make us miss out on a big-time quarterback or some shit. But it was a close game that the Raiders ended up winning. That's got to be red.
Yep, my bad.
Yeah. I hope it's a close game, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm picking us to lose, and I'm hoping for us to lose. I want Mark Davis to have every reason to fire Josh McDaniels, as does most Raider fans. Most Raider fans feel like they already do. And I think probably most Raider fans hope that Josh McDaniels gets fired tomorrow and they bring in a new coach and he goes out there and he wins 7 games and somehow squeaks our way into the playoffs, similar to Bizakia, But that's just not going to happen, right? That's not going to happen with our current quarterback predicament. So, yeah, I'm hoping for the highest draft pick possible. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So you don't want to change it to the Raiders?
I don't, but I will say there's a lot to be said about Aiden Hutchinson. I think he is a very up-and-coming, promising-looking player in this league. And he honestly reminds me a lot of, especially statistically, he reminds me a lot of Max Crosby. Yeah, and I think the last point for me is I want to see more from Tyree Wilson and Michael Mayer in this game in prime time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to see more, but like I said, it's going to be tough for the Raiders to stop Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. The Raiders defense is going to have their hands full, and it's going to be in front of the whole nation. So if there's a blowout loss to get fired to, it might be this Monday, but you never know. So I think that's the show. Yeah, Mike, this might have been our best episode yet. What do you think?
I think it might have been. We were both a little disgruntled by our teams, and we came in here and aired out our frustrations, I would say.
Yeah. There was, I feel like adversity brings out the best content,
Yeah.
because there's always more interesting things to talk about rather than just, well, Niners played good. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But not that I want the Niners to lose. You know what I mean? I care more about the Niners than I do about having more stuff to talk about. The Niners, if the Niners won a Super Bowl, and I would talk about that. So
100%.
yeah. But anyways, we appreciate everybody who took time out to check out the show. And if you stuck with us to the end, I see that we still have one viewer. I don't know who it is. I have a good idea of who it might be. But we appreciate you, and see you next week. Oh, hold on. I didn't do it last week, so I got to do it this week. Peace.